Just lunch and dinner.
I don't know what okay means. Close enough. Good evening. It's Tuesday, November 11th, 6:30 p.m. The year is 2025. Special Common Council meeting. Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Nelson.
Here.
Alderman Pecorelli.
Here.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Here.
Alderman Hassan.
Here.
Alderwoman Day.
Here.
Alderman Salus.
Here.
Alderman Craig.
Present.
Ooh. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to letter B as in boys, citizen comment period. I will only read the chapter 19 under citizen comment period. It says, during the citizen comment period, no person shall speak for longer than 3 minutes at each council meeting unless the city council shall direct otherwise to an individual. City council direction may take the form of unanimous consent, amended March 5th, 2002, by ordinance number 2002-1708, comma, back again, August 18, 2009, by ordinance number 2009, 1976. Mr. Taylor, former mayor, good evening, welcome. Could you please give it the test? I will be the timekeeper.
National anthem? No.
Please. Voice of an
Tom
angel.
Taylor, 7014 Elroy Court, Franklin, Wisconsin. I see that we have a public hearing that's going to come up on the budget. Is that?
That is correct, sir.
So if I wish to speak at that time, I'll be able to, right? Excuse me. I just want to talk about the Franklin Farmers Market, and based on what I read, maybe I'm incorrect, but it looked like, and you can please correct me if I'm wrong, it looked like in order to make this a feasibility, that this would be located on city property. It would,
Correct.
and that there would be city funds that would be supporting this.
Somewhat correct.
Okay. I'm all for a farmer's market. I think it's terrific. When Ian was here, the developer, I think he said that he would be interested in looking at something like that. I think it's a terrific idea, but I have for a very long time believed that public funds should not go towards supporting private sector ventures or nonprofit organizations. So I'm getting up tonight to say that all for the farmers market, but not for taxpayers' money or taxpayers' resources or assets to go to support it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Seeing no one else, citizen comment period is now closed. Moving on to the public hearing. So how this is going to work is we're going to go into the public hearing on the budget. It'll be announced, it'll be opened, and we will go from there. Questions that could be brought forth by citizens will hopefully be able to be easily answered by our finance director, Daniel Brown, and then we will go into open discussion with members from the council. So with that, Madam Clerk, please read the notice.
As required by Wisconsin State statute, the Common Council scheduled a public hearing on the 2026 Mayor's recommended budget for Tuesday, November 11, 2025. The public hearing was duly noticed in accordance with the law, and the complete Mayor's recommended budget has been available for public inspection at the office of the city clerk, the Franklin Public Library, and the city's website since September 16, 2025.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. It's 6:34 p.m. The public hearing is now open. Anybody wishing to speak on the budget and only on the budget, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and the public hearing is now open.
Tom Taylor, 7014 Elroy Court, Franklin, Wisconsin. Regarding the budget, I had the opportunity of talking to our former finance director before we sat down. And for those of you that were at the finance committee, you know, I mentioned Paul's name and said that I thought that Paul was correct about, before you start doing this or that you have to start looking at making cuts. He informed me tonight that those actually are incorporated into the budget, or that the positions would be placed in contingency, and that at a later date, if needed, those funds would then go to support the fire department, police department, et cetera, et cetera. So, given that Paul knows a whole lot more about finances than I do, and that I have great respect for him, I cherish his opinion on that. The one thing I do want to say is that if you're looking at a financial problem and you're looking to cut departments across the board, for one, all departments are not the same. You have to prioritize. You have the mandatory departments, police, fire, DPW. You have the clerk's office. You must have elections. You have to have a treasurer to collect things. And not all departments are equal in standing. Then you have discretionary programs, things that people really love, parks, civic celebrations, your parades, things of that nature. So I would ask that the council, when you're making your deliberations, you use the priority of police, fire, DPW, elections, treasurer, et cetera, et cetera. Again, not all departments are the same, and they shouldn't be treated that way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak on this public hearing? Good evening, Mr. Rotzenberg.
Good evening. My name's Paul Rotzenberg. I live at 6713 West River Point Drive here in Franklin. Just for full disclosure, I'm the retired former finance director for the city. Council has gone through a budget preparation process over the last several weeks. And as mentioned earlier by another member of the public, I did attend several of the Finance Committee hearings as well as listen to what was online. Thankfully, the council this evening has an easy decision relative to the public's interest in this, and the public's interest is in whether or not they have tax bills that are going to cause them significant pain. And as mentioned in the introduction of the mayor's recommended budget, you've included in your budget the maximum tax increase that's permitted under state statute right now, and that will have a relatively minor impact on taxpayers because of the fact you had no reassessment of the city this year. So people's tax bills will remain relatively constant. However, there is a significant problem included in your budget, and I've been very disappointed at the lack of discussion about those problems in your budget deliberation process. That problem is the dependence upon developers for guarantees in your TID districts. And as I read the budget, there's an $887,000 dependence on developer guarantees to meet your debt payments within the TID districts. When prior councils authorized debt sales, they did it under general obligation requirements. So under state statutes and prior councils, you are required to tax to meet those debt service payments in those TIDs. Currently, you're depending upon developer guarantees to make some of those payments. Developers have in other communities walked away from their obligations, and if they would, you would be required to increase the taxes in this community to meet that. So there's been other discussions related to creating new TID districts in the city, and if those TID districts are going to require public support by way of general obligation bonds, you are again taking on additional risk. I've advised the Finance Committee, but I would encourage the council to engage your financial advisors to give you some advice at how you might address this problem in your TIDs, because the two problem TIDs that you have, TIDs 5 and TID 6, only have about 10 years left on their life, but several millions of dollars of tax payments that are required to meet those debt service. So I'd encourage the Common Council to engage your financial advisors to give you some advice on how to solve and address some of these problems. The other issue that I would like to bring forward to you this evening is there are two major projects that were included in the department requests in the capital improvement funds, that being a new fire station as well as the completion of the Drexel Avenue program. However, they were left out of the mayor's recommended budget, so they are not part of your current budget. And if you decided to proceed with those projects, it would take a budget amendment, and that would mean 4 council members would have to agree to make that change. So I'd encourage you to include those in the budget. And the school district helped you out in your TIDS a year ago when they took on $140 million worth of debt and put that debt service on their tax rate. That helped your TIDS. You could also include some major projects, borrow money to do that, amortize that debt over a shorter period of time, the remaining life of your current TIDS, and that would help but not solve some of your TID problems. Your financial advisors would probably tell you that as well. Appreciate you taking the time. I hope, Mr. Mayor, I haven't exceeded my limit. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wishing to speak at this hearing at this time? Seeing no one, close it at 6:41 p.m. Madam Director of Finance, I'm going to start with addressing a few of the citizens' comments, and then feel free to jump in with the tech stuff, and then we'll open this up to members of the council. So starting with the farmers market look and how that is, since that conversation started, it has been a metric ton of information, some good, a lot concerning to where this is going to go and how it's going to be funded. I'm not going to speak for anyone else up here but myself. I am 100% in support of it with caveats. And I agree with one of the speakers, former mayor, that we're not looking to do or at least reduce the amount of any money or funding for this organization that would bring in a farmer's market. We are looking to do some sort of parallel, if this would move forward, some sort of parallel design similar to St. Martin's Fair and how that's run and things are working with the vendors and so on and so forth. But this is not a simple flow chart where you look up and say, oh, we'll do this and we'll do this and we'll do this. There's a lot of moving parts. We've gotten some great feedback from another jurisdiction, Oak Creek, where it's currently at. This would just be another market. It would be at the same day and time. And looking for major donations and donors and sponsors. And that's how we would look to fund this ultimately. So we're going to be discussing that, and there's a lot of correspondence. I know some of my cohorts up here are going to be chomping at the bit to go at this, which is good. You have to have passion, but I just want to make the passion is motivated by what's best for the community and not politicized by few sour grapes. So with that being said, and to address Mr. Rotzenberg, there is no question that Ehlers and SB Friedman play a big role in how we figure things out and how we do our financial planning. Absolutely. And when we looked at, and this is for both gentlemen, when we looked at how could we, and I attended most of the finance committee meetings this year, but we've got 3 alders on that finance committee, which is a great deal, is to say, how can we do this and how can we look to make it amicable? And we looked at a 5% reduction, and to, I believe it was your point, yes, every department's different. What can you take from a department, what you can't take? I know when Mr. Rotzenberg got everybody's attention at the last meeting when he said, this is who you should lay off and lay off and lay off, and people, wow. Well, what we're looking at holding spots open and how that was able to come across with balancing a budget and looking at what we could do to not cut critical services, police, fire, DPW, assure our obligation to the taxpayers that we are providing them exceptional services, yet how do we balance that? Well, we got some open positions. If we hold them open for a little while longer that haven't been filled, they've been posted and not filled. That seems like it seemed like a reasonable outcome that we could continue with. And then as the year moves on, after each quarter, there's reviews and hopefully some things can be walked back. So the term of walking back is how much better financially are we off now where we can return some of that money and get those things filled as the year goes on. So with that, I will yield. And Madam Director of Finance, do you want to start speaking on this one? And then is there anybody right now that's got questions right now before we turn over to Danielle? They could wait till after Danielle's talking. Go ahead, ma'am. Oh, sorry.
I actually
Alderwoman Day?
do have a comment. As I see there are multiple departments in the audience here, I'm sure if they're not listening at home, they'll be listening to this tomorrow because it impacts all city staff with the budget. And I'd just like to say that I disagree to a point with no disrespect to the former mayor and the current mayor. I believe all city staff and all city departments are important, equally so to the city. They all have different roles to play, but I think it's unfair to disparage basically half of the city staff. Thank you.
Well, I guess I have to respond since you threw me in the mix. There's nobody that's disparaging anybody. When I talked about open positions in police, fire, and DPW, I'm referring to open positions in police, fire, and DPW. So, Madam Director of Finance?
I think responding to any comments will probably be taken care of in the presentation
Thank you.
at this point.
That's not
This one? No, this is okay. Let's just move this probably to a spot that you guys don't need to see. Okay. All right, well, thank you. I have put together a presentation that's a little bit shorter than the mayor's recommended budget. This is a high overview of what has been going on since September 16th. You will see some information that's the same. Some of it has changed since September 16th, and then I will answer any questions at the end. Okay, so the 2026 budget process. So what has gone on? Starting in June, roughly, is when we begin the budget process internally. The Director of Administration, myself, the mayor, and department staff meet. We hold department head meetings. We discuss department requests for the budget. We move through preparation, compilation of the budget review, and then the mayor's recommended budget is presented in September. Following that, the Finance Committee meets. Typically, meetings are held 4 times. Each department is brought forward to discuss their requests for the budget. Following that, we talk about the tax levy, any outstanding obligations, and then any recommended changes that the Finance Committee will make to the Common Council. Again, the Finance Committee met 4 times. The Common Council was presented recommended changes on October 7th. That was to make sure that any changes were included in the proposed budget that was to be put in the paper and published. And then some additional recommended changes were brought forth to the Council on November 4th. Following that, the changes were then put into the proposed budget, and the hearing notice was published on October 22nd, notifying the citizens of tonight's public hearing. A few major highlights. Again, I will just talk high level. Some of this is from the initial presentation. We try to establish a fiscally responsible budget, making sure that it's balanced. We try and make sure that all services are maintained at the same level as prior years. We only borrow debt when absolutely necessary. We try and do that to reduce interest costs, keep our bond rating the same, and then not burden any future budgets. We try and minimize the tax impact on residents as minimal as possible. And then we do aim to expand the opportunity economically to grow the tax base, provide future development to the city, and create new jobs. It's no surprise that there was quite a few crucial challenges that we faced with this budget. That being said, the first 3 points all kind of go together. City priorities are high, and aligning the budget to meet the needs of the city are challenging. We have rising expenditures. We have limited revenue resources, both from a city level on what we can statutorily increase, as well as from a state level and what they can provide. We have a limit on the levy as to what we can increase the levy by. And so just trying to maintain and balance all those services with the funding that we receive has become a large challenge. And then also administratively, there are some policies and procedures that we can start looking at going forward to make sure that our budget is more aligned. Getting into the meat of the budget, so the tax levy. This year, the net new construction was relatively high compared to prior years, and that's due to the Department of Revenue change from the timing of the assessment from last year. It's been relatively between 90 to 110 million dollars annually, and this year was 147-ish million, and that was again due to the timing change of last year. We did receive roughly $50 million in additional net new construction this year. It was a 2.26% increase on the annual tax levy, which equated to roughly $529,000. The preliminary levy increase is $445,000, which equates to a 2.9 tax levy increase on the average resident. As Mr. Rotzenberg did say, because there was no revaluation on the assessments this year, it did allow for the average property increase on the residential home to be relatively less than 1%. So most residents, as long as your assessed value didn't change drastically, you will see that roughly 2.9% tax increase just for the city portion. And so this graph just shows you relatively over the last 10 years, we've increased our levy about $4 million. The tax rate itself, again, the assessed value plays a part in the overall tax rate. The tax rate did increase about 8 cents per thousand, which is $3.92 per $1,000. So just looking at the graph on the left-hand side, you can just see if the average home, $100,000 in 2024, it went up the 1-ish%, which would bring your home up to 106,000, 107,000, and the new tax rate, you're looking at roughly $11 additional citywide on your tax bill this year. Per thousand, right? So if you have a $300,000 home, it would be $33. This graph over here in green just shows that 10 years ago, our tax rate was $5.69 per thousand. This year, we're projecting $3.92. So what does the general fund look like? The increase in state shared revenue, that's both utility aid and municipal aid, we received 2.8% increase, which is slightly below CPI. It was about $41,000 from last year. Until the city reaches $5 per thousand as a tax rate, we don't qualify for the expenditure restraint program. Following all the recommended changes, this budget is balanced, and we don't have any use of any fund balance at this time. And then a few details. So the revenues and the expenditures for 2026 both increased by almost $1 million. Per the council direction, all the excess funding was allocated to the unrestricted contingency fund. So following last week's meeting with the recommended changes, there was roughly $670,000 of additional revenue that was transferred or allocated to the unrestricted contingency fund that can be brought forward by budget amendment only in 2026. Personnel costs. This budget reflects no new positions. However, it does reflect a few departments having a hiring freeze. The overall wage increase for non-represented employees is 2%, 3% for the fire department and 4% for the police department. Departments that are below the compensation threshold do get an adjustment to market increase. With the proposed changes that were included in the budget back in October, it allowed for the health insurance costs both from a city perspective and an employee perspective to remain stagnant. So the city and the employee will be paying the same amount that they paid last year. A few main points that I wanted to point out, again, as Mr. Rotzenberg said, the capital spending, capital improvement plan did show that departments requested roughly $37 million in projects just for 2027. It's really important to think about what can we prioritize, which is why the next couple points just state that the revenue that we are receiving for our capital funds, which would be landfill siting revenue, investment income, any transfers, and then there is $300,000 of tax levy in the street improvement fund. Those resources are being used on projects. However, the large projects that are being presented will be slated for a further discussion for the Finance Committee in January. A large debt planning project will need to be had, and that being said, there's going to be some further discussion, and it just made more sense to bring it forward to the Finance Committee in January and really determine what kind of projects can we prioritize, what can we move forward, and what needs to happen now. And again, to Mr. Rotzenberg's point, there is that ability to borrow a large amount of money, amortize it over a shorter period of time, help the TIDs, but also get the projects that the city need. We do have aging infrastructure and equipment. The solid waste fee, that will be the same as it has been since 2024. So it's still going to be the $159.60, that's your garbage and recycling. And then the proposed fee structure update for most departments, I know the clerk's department has brought forward their recommended changes. There is a proposal for the court to be bringing forward their fee structure and an overall fee structure update for all departments that can, hindering any statutory requirements, will be implemented by January 1st. So any plan changes? Annually, the sewer rate increase is expected. There's future projects that you will see in the capital, or you have seen in the capital improvement plan. And then there has been discussion of increasing the water rates. We are going to go to the PSC for a rate study in 2026 as soon as the water tower project is complete. So you may potentially see a water increase as well. We continue to address the department's staffing, again, while trying to maintain the same level of service as we have provided in the past. Focus on any operational efficiencies and evaluation of services. I know part of the reason that the Finance Committee recommended the 5% budget reduction was to allow departments to really determine what are the needs of their department and how can they be lean. And then, as stated before, economic growth. The 2026 debt service fund, the levy is the same as last year. It's $1.14 million. We will be having the future discussions with the Finance Committee on how to fund projects. We have general obligation debt in our city funds, our water fund, our sewer funds, and all of our TID funds at this time. Again, as Mr. Rotzenberg stated, we are experiencing debt shortfalls in our TIDs, and so we have to make sure that the developers are aware and have further conversations on what can potentially happen if the developer, if their obligation is not to pay the shortfall. Maintain a future borrowing plan, and then fund one-time large projects with a one-time borrowing. And so just to reiterate a couple of the changes, and then this will wrap it up, and then I'll answer any questions. It's a little shorter than last year. The main focus this year was on the general fund and how to support the $1 million gap that we have. The capital outlay fund, the changes there were previously recommended changes from the council, and that was for the fire department receiving their grant for their gym equipment. And so they received a grant, and the city obligation is over on this side over here. And then the general fund, after all of the recommended changes, the budget is fully balanced now with the remaining going into the unrestricted contingency fund. So that is all that I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'll start. First of all, thank you. Thank you, Director Brown and Director Hirsch for, I mean, the work you guys put in, and Danielle, especially when Kelly went out. You just you just took the ball and ran with it, and you did an exceptional job. It's a lot of work. I want to also thank the Finance Committee because the bells were rung back in January. The cautionary bells were rung that we're going to have issues. So it wasn't that we waited. We started this back in January. We started looking at solutions to problems back in January. And to the Finance Committee, then that brought it to the Council. Council was made aware. Council worked well. Everything was brought forth with Danielle. And I just want to say thank you to everybody because we are delivering a balanced budget to the city of Franklin. And that's a big deal that things are going well. And that's the chime from above. So two of the things that were mentioned that I wanted to address, and I should have addressed it, was the Drexel Avenue road project. So just a reminder, we had 2 legs done this year. We've got the final leg east to 27th Street that is being held off until we have the whole Costco thing lined up, because if you've got a whole construction deal coming in and out of there and everything else, that's going to get done. It will get done, but it's going to be contingent upon the build of that project. And if the Costco timeline is correct, it could be, you know, early summer of 26, it could be open. So it's going to be contingent upon let all the construction traffic do what they got to do, build what they got to build, then we'll replace and do that final third leg to the east. That's what makes sense. Now, this is only, my next part is about a firehouse. This is just me personally speaking, and it'd be up to the council. But I wouldn't touch building a new firehouse with a 10-foot pole. I would put it to the taxpayers through referendum to build a new one. I think there's some other options that we would definitely, when we are ready to have that conversation, absolutely, positively with the fire chief and the assistant chiefs, and we would pull everybody in to have that conversation about what is going to best suit the citizens moving forward. What is the long-term plan? Because when we're talking about one area of our city being built up, looks like a lot of areas in our city are being built up. So it's not a simple, oh, this is where you put it. So this is going to be a big thing where the chiefs are definitely going to be involved, the council. This is going to be a big, tight thing. And when we decide, you know, how many millions and millions of dollars is this going to go with, my 2 cents would be, instead of us, you know, getting hammered with where do we come up with the money, I like referendums to see where that could go, especially when it's explained to the citizens on how it would work. So for now, I will yield and open up to members of the council that wish to address the budget questions. Alderman Sluse.
Thank you, Danielle. My question, like, you know, doing any project, we always keep contingency fund, like things, unexpected expenses takes place. And with these cuts that I see, although we have a balanced budget, but it's like a bare bone, like, you know, if any surprise, any unforeseen expense takes place, we will be going into a negative. And, you know, I am a business person, and I see like running any establishment has been rising like 5 to 6% at least on a yearly basis. And looking at the budget of what the city of Franklin doing as a whole, it looks reasonable looking from the outside. But, you know, my question, where are we going from here? Is it like, you know, do we have any contingency fund? Something goes wrong, you know, aside from borrowing money, do we have a long-term strategy? Where are we going with this, you know, budget issues?
My first question is, are you talking about operationally or capital?
I'm talking that operational.
Operational, okay. So this budget does reflect taking out the $677,000 in unrestricted contingency that was approved by the council. There is still $150,000 in contingency that has been in the budget in the past that has still required budget amendments coming forward. So it does have, the budget does reflect that. which is no different than what we've had in prior years.
And moving forward, like, I do expect with the inflation, I feel it, like the inflate, like, I do expect this 5-6% to happen on a yearly basis. Like, at what point do we have some kind of a broader discussion about how we fund our local government? Because, you know where I'm coming from. The reliance on the property tax alone to fund everything that we run in the city is gonna, put us at a little bit of a difficulty with the property and, homeowners, because, people live in their homes and, at a certain point, we start to feel that we rent our own homes. And, I am just like wondering if there is an open discussion on how we can, generate additional funding to help structure, the financial challenges we are facing down the road.
So what I will say is I can add something like that to the Finance Committee. I think it's important for them to have a recommendation and some further discussion on the budget challenges as well as increase in costs and how the city could officially fund those things. So I will make sure to put that on.
Thank you.
Yep.
So one of the things that another jurisdiction is doing is putting in forth a wheel tax. And that's gone over like a lead balloon, terrible thing in that community. And I think it's very disingenuous to try to put citizens and say, well, we're not going to raise your taxes, but we're going to charge a wheel tax and this tax, this tax. I don't like that at all. We are doing what we can to run a lean yet efficient, yet providing services to the community. To your point, what do we do for long-term planning? These plans are very fluid, and they're fluid as far as what we got going on, because net new construction, Madam Finance Director, is that not, what we can't use things that come in after January 1st. So what, if you can explain, because net new construction, when we drive around our city and you see these houses being built and this being built, it's like, wow, we're really booming. And we are, but there's a certain timing of the year that we can claim those things.
January 1st is when those numbers are valued at.
So that's the point. So it's like when you're driving like today, we did the little tour around and drive around. It's like, wow, they're still breaking ground in almost mid-November to get these houses going. And you wonder, well, when does that tax come to us? And now that we have a maintenance year and you're not going to see an increase this year because it's a maintenance year. We took the big hit last year to make everything right. Everything was righted. The ship was righted last year. So now we have that going for us, that now moving forward, we have a very accurate depiction of what the assessments are. It's the land, it's the building, and now it's the commercial industrial. So all those things are coming together, but if they're not set in place by January 1 for the net new construction, we can't use it. So that's one thing that I learned it a few years ago, and that's just one of those harsh realities. I'll yield. Alderman Day?
The only thing I had, and I know we talk about this every year, and I know it shows up in the next round of the newsletter, but if you could just go over again kind of how Franklin's portion of a person's tax bill is going to look. So, you put the graphic up, which is always great, but chances are everybody's, taxes are going to go up more than that amount because we only account for a small portion of it and we can only control a small portion of it. So if you just like high level, I'm not asking for specific numbers, but just kind of high level, explain how
Like
how
the
that
pie
works.
chart?
Sure.
I love the pie chart, but
The pie chart, yes.
Yes. The pie chart insert, yes.
Yep, so the common theme is the city of Franklin property tax bill. You look at it, roughly 23 to 25% of your tax bill comes back to the city of Franklin. The other portions will go back to the sewerage district, they'll go back to the school district that you live in, which is the largest majority of your tax bill. Then it'll always also go to MATC. And then the county, sorry.
And MMSD.
Yeah, the surge district, MMSD, yes. So those are your 5 taxing jurisdictions that are going to be on your tax bill. You may have additional charges on there, whether it's a special assessment, your sewer and delinquent utilities, any special charges, and then your solid waste fee. Coming from the perspective of, your 25%, that goes to fund everything within the city of Franklin.
And of that, and I know the answer, on just under 25% of that tax bill, about what percentage goes to staff?
Between 75 and 80.
So of that, and I think it's actually like 79 that goes to staff. So now you're really hurting. Now, when you look at the pie chart, which I love, you know, last year, 44% of that tax bill went to the schools. So the school district got 44% of the tax bill. Milwaukee County got 20%. 20% of our dollars went to Milwaukee County, which equated to like $19.5 million went to Milwaukee County. And I look at Mr. Taylor and we snicker about this, and you have to wonder, because we're both county retirees, that's a lot of money. And what do you get for that 19.5 million? It makes you scratch your head,
Absolutely nothing.
right? And then you look at MATC, a little over 5%, and you look at what we're really straddled with to try to get these things going and to really provide the services and the roads and all these other things that we really have to focus on. We do not have a lot of money. I can't tell you the amount of people, it was in the hundreds I met with last year after tax bills came out about their tax increase. And then I said the first thing, as I had the angry masses with their tax bill, I said, look at the lower left section. Look at the 2 school referendums. And that's why in this newsletter, it's going to be out there more. It's going to say it again. We've got one that's got 19 years left roughly, and one that's got 13 or whatever it is. And that's a big portion of why your tax bill went up. I value our schools. I voted for the referendum. I don't have any kids in those schools, but I know how important it is to the community. But it's a chunk of change, and it's a financial commitment. You still have the floor.
You did. Oh, I was like,
I got all crazy,
You
and I
did.
forgot who's got the floor.
I
And
know. You took my soapbox away from
Oh.
me. I was going to go. That's all. I
then
was
forget
gonna-
everything I said. Courtney, you still got the floor.
No, that was the point I was going to make. That, you know, we try very hard with a very small pot of money to be as responsible as we can and still provide the services that we do to the community. There are parts of your tax bill that we obviously have no control over, and I'm sure we wish we could, because there are probably some things we would do differently, maybe even better than some of the other entities that are on it. But I know that, speaking for myself, I looked at this budget as, what can we do to maintain the services that we do that make Franklin such a great city, but also are not going to impact the taxpayers in a negative fashion. And I think we did that. It was a lot of work this year, so I echo the thanks to Danielle and Kelly for putting this together, because it was a lot of work. But I think we got there.
Mr. Peccarelli.
So when I appreciate all the work all the department heads did on the 5% ask. Of the 5% ask, what was the total dollar amount that equated to?
Gosh.
Was it like 1.2 roughly?
Yes.
Okay.
At 1.2, 1.3, yeah.
Okay. So it was like 1.2, 1.3, and we ended up with that unrestricted contingency of,
680-ish.
so then, so about 500,000, 550, actually we had to absorb,
Yes, and I will just say I truly believe that department heads tried their best. There were some that just could not get to the full 5%, right? So it wasn't that everybody cut and then we just injected another 550 back into the
Right.
budget. It was just there was some issues with trying to maintain their levels of service in each department and reduce it by 5%.
Right.
So the 1.2, 1.3 wasn't necessarily officially achieved at the end of the goal.
Yep, and then back to with positions, some of this is looking at timing of positions, like when people get hired, right? So it might not seem intuitive at first unless you're around budgets a lot, but if you do budgeting and you go, well, this person's going to be here for 12 months, right? That's going to be a certain amount of dollars, but if it really takes you until March or April to hire, technically speaking, when you got into the year and that actually occurred, you only have 9 or 10 months worth of salary and benefits and everything you've paid, you actually saved at the beginning that amount. And so this budget is taking into account some of that, the reality of hiring. Is that correct?
Yep.
So that was part of what we got there. And the last part of this, going back to the contingency concept, is that we still took that 700,000 or whatever it is, and that's sitting there as contingency. So the idea being is, as has been stated, as we're going into the year and we see we have needs, those things can be brought forward to council. We can approve them, review them, approve them, and then those dollars get released. And so as things move forward, we actually have some I'll say extra dollars than we would have in normal years. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
And so then we'll make decisions. Now, I realize it's also difficult because not all departments start in the same place, right? So if you were a department and you were running leaner than another department, when you got 5%, it might be a little more challenging. And I appreciate that. And, but that's also why we have this in place. So if that was a little, you're running into some issues, you bring that forward and we can review it. So none of these processes are ever foolproof. They don't, they're not always easy. But we kind of had from a finance committee standpoint, we had to start somewhere, and that's kind of where we started. So I should say that was the second thing. It's like we look for the easy ones,
Yeah.
but there weren't a lot of those. So
Yes.
I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Eichman.
Thank you, Mayor. I can tell we're on a tight budget with a lack of heat this evening.
Oh, we're saving money.
For-
Got to layers, people.
Just a few things I wanted to touch base on as far as the budget reflecting 5% reduction from most departments. It's my understanding the department head meetings were held and so forth, and the departments were told, police, fire, DPW, that they needed to do a budget cut. But then there were two departments that did not do a budget cut, one in particular that did an increase. Did we want to discuss that at all this evening? Because I believe last time our city administrator was not here to answer any of the questions that council had.
You
So,
can ask away.
In all
Alderwoman.
fairness,
Ask away.
the things that were said last time, now that she's here, she could maybe clarify some of that, if you wouldn't mind, Kelly.
I actually put a memo in there because I noticed that conversations were had without me here after I had left. So yeah, I did participate in it, and I put the emphasis on helping other department heads meet their 5% as best that they could. And it was prioritizing that over doing my own, which I had numerous conversations over the budget cycle on what could or could not be cut. Actually, and over the time from the finance committee meeting to the time that we had met, I had a number of conversations that I had both with the mayor and with the director of finance and others about how we could reduce our budget, which is very difficult to reduce because it's almost purely operational. And I don't have a source of funding, to bring shared revenue in or that sort of thing. So it's very difficult to cut money. The increase was for postage and for, I believe, what was it, printing costs and other various items. I also, we were looking at going with a different wireless emergency service, trying to think of what, notification service. And I know that we had talked about adding that to my budget. So, it's kind of, the administration budget is sort of like the catch-all when you don't have anywhere else to put it. And like I said, it's purely operational.
And I would just comment on it, and I think I mentioned it at the last meeting. The one thing that was entered on the memo that was an increase was purely from the Department of Revenue, and it was nothing that the Director of Administration had any control over.
Right. So we had recently received the retirement notice of our HR manager. And my goal is to obviously fill her position, but with the budget the way that it is, we will be taking some time to fill that. And that is kind of where the plan was for the 5%.
Thank you for that clarification. I greatly appreciate it. When we fill a position such as that, would we place ads? Does that come out of your budget too? Is that?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, it's coming from the HR part. There's all kinds of budget lines. We also do testing that comes out of the budget. So if there's different testing that's required for the position, drug testing, background checks, all of that comes out of the admin budget.
And then our PR person, her funds come out of your budget as well, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, a line item was added in 2023 to my budget, I think, or not.
24.
24.
All right, I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, is there a motion to approve the budget?
I'll make the motion.
We have a first. Is there a second to approve the budget? We have a second. This would be a roll call, please.
Alderman Peccarelli.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Sluse.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nos, motion and budget carries. Thank you very much. Moving into number 2, D as in David 2, the Franklin Farmers Market. I think looking at this, this will be, hello, good evening, ma'am. Why don't you have a seat up here? And we'll do a test on the microphone, see if it works. Could you just please state your name and business address for the record, please?
Dawn Carrillo, 5371 South Cambridge, Greenfield.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome. We've met a few times on this. We've discussed a few things on this. There's been a considerable discussion about how the infrastructure may look, how it may work. There were a lot of things that were brought to light that were back-end concerns, and kind of define the term back-end as how the financial component of this works, how it gets dealt with, financial reporting. There was a lot more than I knew or I expected to go and buy some bell peppers and carrots. So I think we've come a long way. I believe that it's going to be an ask of the council, which would probably lead to a new budget amendment, if it had to be, up front anyway, in the beginning. But there are concerns. I want a farmer's market for our city. I think this is a great opportunity for our city, but it comes with some heavy lifting. And I know there's gonna be quite a bit of discussion on this tonight. And what I'd like to do is perhaps have our Madam Director of Finance, everybody was given a copy of that email that drew up some concerns. And I know there's going to be questions here, so why don't we start that dialogue, please?
Sure. So there was some meetings that had taken place last week following the Common Council meeting, both with the mayor and Alderwoman Eichman, also with some staff at the city of Oak Creek, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on that. I do encourage, before any questions or decisions are made, that either ask questions about the conversations that have taken place and read the emails that I put at your seat there. That being said, the memo that I put together was based on research that I've done, based on conversations that I've had with other municipalities, based on my personal recommendation from a finance perspective, and also the meetings that had taken place since last week. So without jumping into the memo itself, I just ask that questions come first. There are department heads in the audience that I'm sure if you have questions, they'd be willing to come up and answer them and or speak on how this may affect their own department themselves, and then just go from there.
And I think before we jump into Alderwoman Eichman, I think one of the things, just so people understand where we were looking, and I don't think I shared this with the police or DPW or fire, which was to have this farmer's market in the lower lot of, Kelly, it's broken. It's broke. So we can push all the buttons you want, it's not gonna work. But we're saving money. So that's to move it to the lower lot, parking lot at City Hall, and that squared off entrance exit by the Sally Port. And just basically keep that, we'd have no negative impact on the streets. You've got the little garage there to keep some tents and stuff in, you have the dumpsters there. We have to add a porta-john and a wash station, we can do that there on the cement pad. And it would be contained in that lower lot and moving upward, and that's where the barricades would be up. So you'd have the lower area, the side area, and then as it moved upward, that's where it would stop. So that would be able to probably accommodate that possibly up to 60 vendors if we were used that entire area. And that way, none of the roadways, all those roads would keep open. So that's, and again, this is what we talk about isn't, this is like the debate club. You could, find a pro and a con in everything. And that's just the nature of America. But what I do want to say is the support and the look for a farmer's market for our city is huge. We've got the demand, we get the questions. I want to say it's almost equal to those on the internet that ask for Trader Joe's. That was funny. Never mind. So that's how ridiculous you wouldn't know that if you read some of these people. So but looking at the demand and the ask, and it's like, okay, here's the ask. How do we deliver on the ask? We had the St. Martin's Fair here since '58. We had a first Monday fair, which went on for decades and fizzled, and we had the road closed and all this stuff, and it was a shame. It was sad to see it leave. Then Dawn comes and says, "Hey, I got an idea," and we were excited. Alderwoman Eichmann was the quarterback of this thing. I'll give her the credit she deserves and the work she's putting in on this, and she's carrying a lot of the water on this and getting a lot of feedback on this. And we realize it's a cost. We realize it's not going to be perfect, but we have to start somewhere if we want to make this happen. Because I know none of us up here are going to want to, hey, I'm going to start a farmer's market. Gee, really? You are? Okay, then I learned a lot from you, Dawn. I learned a lot from the community adjacent to Wessel Creek, and a lot of the work that was done. This is a lot of heavy lifting to make this event go off, and a lot of reporting to the state. There's a lot more that goes into this. And so with that, I will yield to Alderwoman Eichmann.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Dawn, for being here. For clarification purposes, if I heard you correct, Danielle, when you said that there were meetings prior, there was not a meeting with staff of Oak Creek. There's communication. But I wasn't
Sure,
involved
you
in
call
any.
it communication or a meeting. It was a
With Zoom.
Zoom meeting with,
Oh, I wasn't involved in that.
correct, you weren't.
Okay, when you said my name, I didn't even.
Oh, no, I just meant you had been in previous meetings, not
Right,
in that
okay.
one specific one.
I didn't even realize that there was a Zoom meeting with the city of Oak Creek at all. I was left out of that.
Oh, there was.
That would have been interesting to be in. There, as Danielle said, the meetings I was involved in, which I thought were all, but finding out there was not,
Nope.
was with the police chief and the head of our DPW, which I greatly appreciate their time. That was the meeting that I was involved with, along with Danielle, who's put in a lot of time on top of completing this budget. We caught her at the most busiest time of the year, and Danielle, I really appreciate your time that you made to sit down with us when you have a lot going on. Second meeting that I was involved in was with Dawn and the mayor, again Danielle, and Heidi, who would be our market coordinator. And lots of different changes and things were discussed for the better in that meeting that was held on Friday. As we're looking at this farmer's market and some of the feedback that a lot of feedback that I've received on my Alderwoman Facebook page, we're not looking to be the largest farmer's market out there. We're not looking to be the best farmer's market out there. We're simply looking for a way to provide fresh produce at a reasonable cost to residents and an easy way for them to come and get the fresh produce. Stopping, picking up fresh produce, it doesn't require them spending the whole day like some other markets may have. We're not looking to do food trucks because I love the idea that Dawn said. Without having food trucks, if someone's hungry and they want to get lunch, they will then filter out to the local restaurants in the area. A family may now go drop $50 to $75 at the local Dairy Queen versus spending it on a food truck, which in turn hurts our Franklin restaurants. We need to increase revenue and business at the existing Franklin restaurants that we have. We've seen one too many close over the years in Franklin. Franklin is known to not always support our local restaurants. So that would help by not actually having food trucks. That would help as far as the space, the parking, the room. There's going to be pros and cons to anything, any project, anything new. As the market were to grow, it's also been discussed. We're not married to always having it here at City Hall. As it were to grow, we've got some great ideas of other places to take it. It'd be held in the lower parking lot at City Hall is a start, just to see how it goes, how many vendors we actually have, and take it from there to see if we do need to move it as it were to increase and get larger. As the mayor said, there is so much that goes into this. It's unbelievable. From, the background checks that the city does, the liability and insurance, the filings with the state, the SNAP program, the list is on and on. It's not just, hey, we want to have a farmer's market. We found someone great that can help us bring vendors in. Let's set it up and go. It's very complex. It's time consuming for several departments. And the departments that have reached out, I greatly appreciate your support, as well as some of the realistic cons that you brought up too, so that we can navigate fairly and transparently all the pros and cons to bringing this in. As I said, any project is going to have them. So I have more, but I will yield for now. Thank you.
Alderwoman Day?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can, I don't care. So, thank you, Dawn, for coming back again. I appreciate you taking the time and giving us the time to kind of go over things in greater detail. So I have what I believe are the notes that you may have provided before to a few people, but for whatever reason didn't trickle our way. I'm assuming that's what's in here, the estimates or whatever, for like city resources, as well as like I guess I would say, the generalized responsibilities of the different entities. That's your document that you were referring to last time, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And- Right, so it'll outline more of whose responsibilities, how it works, those kind of things where it should answer quite a few questions that you guys had last time.
Yeah, so what I want to go back to is, I'm not sure how much of the budget conversation that you heard when you got here, but we're very lean as far as, the extra money that we have, and we're also very lean as far as staff. In fact, there are multiple departments that have vacancies that are frozen at this moment. And some of those departments are the ones that are listed here as potentially needing to help with some of this on a week-to-week basis. And so, and part of my concern also was, in my time working in other municipalities and working with farmers markets and in farmers markets, I saw kind of how those municipalities had to help and lift and do what they needed to keep the market going. And so I did reach out to Oak Creek after our first meeting, simply because that was the market that you were referencing. So I wanted to get some background. And Mayor Bukevich was kind enough to respond to my email at that point. But then also we received an email today from Andrew Vickers, who's for those that don't know, is the city administrator in Oak Creek, raising some generalized concerns about, kind of how farmers markets work in general, kind of the draw that it makes on a municipality. And there are some, very real concerns that I still have about, if we can pull this off with some of the constraints that this community is saying that they're experiencing with a relatively well-run and well-attended farmers market, as well as things that I've seen in the past in other communities. And I guess where I'm going with all of this, what I was a little bit, I understand that there's a lot of excitement about this, and I'm not saying I don't want a farmer's market. I love farmer's markets. They're fun. I like shopping. I like the ambiance. I like the vendors. And I know there's a lot of excitement in the city for this to come here and for us to have our own. What I found a little bit disconcerting over the weekend was sort of some of the cart before the horse that was happening with, kind of, hey, look at the agenda. There's a farmer's market. Do you want one in Franklin? And then 100 people are like, yeah. And it's kind of cart before the horse because, well, it's great. And like the mayor said, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And, a lot of people that are saying, yeah, we want it, don't necessarily understand the time, the energy, and the cost that goes into it and the cost that is on them as a taxpayer. And so I'm going to read portions of this email from Mr. Vickers, just so that I'm not, catching you off guard with, making comments that you don't know what I'm referring to. And also for other people who, may not know kind of some of the things that go into a farmer's market. And so this came, like I said, this came to us this morning from Andrew Vickers. And I believe everybody has a copy up there. And thanks, Kelly. Good morning, elected officials and colleagues in Franklin. The City of Oak Creek would like to correct misstatements and representations expressed about the Oak Creek Farmers Market, which have been made at your recent Common Council meetings and are quoted in the media. The City of Oak Creek has not had a change in direction of our farmers market. The city has hired a new market manager and intends to continue and grow Oak Creek Farmers Market as it has. The only change in direction of Oak Creek Farmers Market was a change away from our former market manager, Dawn Carrillo. Ms. Carrillo resigned abruptly mid-season. City officials greatly appreciated Dawn's resignation and remain excited about the new opportunities brought about by this leadership change. We are happy to provide an honest reference check regarding our experiences with Ms. Carrillo, customary for past staff members, but such feedback would be provided in an alternative professional setting. Please feel free to reach out. The Oak Creek Farmers Market has never broken even financially, including when factoring in the sponsorships fundraising directed toward the market. The city has subsidized the Oak Creek Farmers Market mostly through its general fund every year it has operated, and in certain years, in beginning phases, the subsidy alone was tens of thousands of dollars. This fact does not even consider costs for executive leadership oversight, finance department staff, HR, marketing, and PR staff, and all of the hidden costs required from your Franklin taxpayers. Based on Oak Creek's actual experience, the costs and staff resources required for operating a market as represented in your November 11th Common Council packet are grossly underestimated. The creation of, and most importantly, the ongoing administration of a new farmers market is not a turnkey solution. The Oak Creek Farmers Market is now a complex business enterprise of the city requiring significant city subsidy to operate. We spent years ironing out the most basic financial controls and protocols to protect the financial integrity of the city and market to make sure we are honoring the commitment we make when fundraising from our local business community. There are many lessons learned on Oak Creek Farmers Market fundraising alone, which our team is happy to share at any time. In the end, we wish you well on this decision. Farmers markets are great things for community, and there's space for more offerings. Oak Creek invests additional dollars every year to bring the Oak Creek Farmers Market as an amenity to the Oak Creek community, and we are happy to make those investments for our farmers, vendor partners, patrons, and visitors. However, with this present proposal, I caution there's not a farmers market business that comes along with engaging a consultant or with hiring a future market manager as a city employee. The city of Franklin would be the farmers market business behind it all, every single aspect of running it as a small business or nonprofit organization. I appreciate allowing me to correct a record of misstatements. We invite you all to lean into our city team members' experiences to avoid the same pitfalls and challenges. So with that being said, it seems like there is a monumental lift on our side, even after, we put up the money at front to get it going. The staff time for this, which arguably is a relatively well-oiled machine at this point, and with a very large throughput, is still a heavy burden on staff that they're still using their general fund to pay for, and we just don't have it. We have a lot of other things that we need to have that money for that are things that are city priorities, whether it's roads, whether it's infrastructure costs, whether it's aging equipment. And this really gives me pause that I'm not sure that we can sustain this from a financial perspective as well as a staffing perspective. I don't know that we have it. And what I feel like we get one shot at this. And so what I would really love to see is your assistance and us still having conversations with our other neighboring communities, Greenfield, Oak Creek, Wauwatosa, Racine, which you're starting up, and get an idea of what their business model looks like. And so we can put something in place that's going to be successful for our budget, for our staff, for the vendors, for the patrons. And because what I would hate to see is us get it started, and after a few months, it fizzles out, because then you've alienated vendors who have nowhere to go because everything else is locked up. Patrons might not want to come back if we try to do it again. And sponsors that we need for other events may not want to invest in things again. So, I think we have one shot at this, and it's not no, I don't ever want a farmer's market. It's just, I think maybe in 2026 it's not the right time to do it. I think we need to have more planning and more things in place. And I think and it may just be bad luck, but had you come to us in, June, July, August, I think we would have had more time to get all of this kind of in line. But with the fact that it's right here and we need to make decisions right now because you need to start, and I get it. I know why you need to start. I know where we are in the calendar. It's just, I don't think we're there as a city, and I don't want it to fail for us. I don't want it to fail for you or for whoever the market manager is. I don't want to set this up to be something that's not successful. I think it can be. I just think we need more time.
Can I respond?
Yeah, absolutely.
My initial thought was you only went to Oak Creek. And Oak Creek is the one city that I left. It says in here because of change of direction. That was my professional way of putting that I didn't want my name associated with some of the changes that were happening in Oak Creek. So then I removed myself as market manager. I hope that if you take all this information, that you do go to Greenfield, that you do go to TOSA. I can get you all the market managers' context. You're going to see a different approach. They run it not as a small business, they run it as an event. And their events help their other events. For instance, if we're going out and talking about sponsorship and you're bringing up the farmers market, it helps their other events as well. Greenfield is a big example. They have a lot of sponsors that do the market as well as all their music that's weekly and all those kind of things that plays into an event under one person's direction so it's not a small business like he's referring to it. So there, there's quite a few things that where he's yes, I was always told that it was self-sustaining, but yes, did I count the staff for did they allocate what dollar amount went for HR when they had to review the hiring of the farmers market staff? I mean, I wasn't privy to that information. I covered staff salaries and expenses, within sponsorship and within the cost to attend a market for vendors. This is, I'm kind of in a hard place as well. Heidi and I have 38 hours into this already on our own dime, on our own time, to help because we believe in farmers markets, whether it be this community or the community next to this that's going to get it next. We believe in what we do, and that's why you'll see that dedication for farmers market managers across the city or across the state of Wisconsin. It's going to bring something to your community that you don't have, a coming together every week and so is it worth the effort? And I guess that's what you have to ask yourself. Is it worth the effort for some hours of, overworked staff already to bring this to your community? Yeah, like I said, I'm not part of this community, but I'm bringing it to you because I believe in bringing fresh produce, locally sourced and grown products to, so that everybody can eat healthier, that we have sustainability, and that, all the things that a farmer's market brings. Yes, it's going to take time and effort. A farmer's market manager is going to have to do the reporting to the state. A farmer's market manager does take that all on for a very little pay, but it's because we love it and we would like to bring it. The natural progression was the farmer's market vendors are unhappy in Oak Creek. They are going somewhere else. The majority are going somewhere else. I thought Franklin might be a perfect opportunity for them. That's why we happen to come across each other. I didn't send you guys an email saying, I think you need a farmer's market. It was through a mutual friend that we talked about the unhappiness of the vendors. So that's how we found each other. It's as simple as that, whether you want to put that money or that dedication to your staff behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it comes down to, again, so my understanding was that Now, you're saying now that the market manager handles all the paperwork and finances with the state?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, absolutely. In Oak Creek, they chose to do it. Tosa, Heidi does it. Racine, I'll do it. Yeah, yeah. The one part we can't do is we can't be the person responsible for income and payout. Because we're not licensed to do that or whatever. It's got the city's name on it. We can't. I mean, I guess we could put barricades in the back of our cars from DPW and drive them down here every Saturday. So those are the things that we're only asking for city support on things we can't do. But we can do a lot of that paperwork. And Heidi does all her SNAP and WIC paperwork herself.
And then the day of operator, go over that again. What's the difference between the market manager and the day of manager? And then how are those different than what you do, say?
Well, I was the market manager, and I will be the market manager in Racine. I will do day of things. I will make sure that everybody loads in, that all the guests are safe, that, the bathrooms are clean, like all those things that you do for an event. The market, what do we call it? The day of coordinator is the second person. What they do is help the market manager set up the tents. I'm getting a little old in age, so I had younger market manager or helpers because I wasn't being able to set up a tent all by myself anymore. So that's where I use that person. But that person is an hourly rate, and they come in, help set up the market, and then they run the SNAP and WIC program so that the market manager isn't behind a tent, that they're walking around and making sure everything's safe, that the roads are blocked off, that you're greeting guests, you're talking to sponsors, you're doing all the management of an event. And then the other person is standing behind the table doing SNAP and WIC. You have to scan the SNAP, give them coins, count the money, things like that. So then that person does that job. So it's really two people. And also, so that is always great because then when a market manager has an emergency or a wedding or whatever, there is a second that can take over those responsibilities.
So where does the day of coordinator come from?
It's a higher position, an hourly position, 7 hours every Saturday.
And okay, so you would find that person and bring them in.
Right.
And
And
their money comes from the market.
Correct, the market budget, correct.
And what would your role be with Franklin?
My role is, if you look at, we wrote it out as the creation of the market. So Heidi and I will, before you hire a market manager, we will come in and we estimated at about 100 hours for us to put together all the policies and procedures and layouts and book the music and get the vendors and create a market for you. And that would be based on that first $15,000 that we had in the budget. And that $15,000 would also be the cost to buy tents and weights and some of those things that we'll need to start a market. Then you hire the farmer's market manager, we bring them up to speed, we hire an hourly worker, and you have a market start in May.
And how many of these markets have you kind of overseen or been a part of?
So I am part of the board of directors for the Wisconsin Farmers Market Association. So I help answer a lot of questions across the state on farmers market managers. But I also set up Oak Creek, started it from scratch. And truly, this email sounds, for 8 years, I had 2 meetings. 1 meeting at the start of the market, 1 meeting at the end of the market. Other than some emails, it wasn't like I was an employee that was in the office. I ran this whole thing, no questions asked. So whatever I created, it was within the budget, and then I did it. So for 8 years, I created the Oak Creek Farmers Market and worked at it for 7 years. This was the 8th year. I also am helping markets across the state. I'm helping Cathedral Square right now redo their market. I am starting Racine Farmers Market. I am a paid employee of the Racine Farmers Market already, so I am in the midst of starting that. And Heidi and I are creating this for you, your scope. So it's not like we run a business, we just know what we're talking about, we know how to do it well, and we want to help these vendors find a new home.
Well, and where I was going with that question was, shouldn't the majority of this stuff already kind of be created as like boilerplates, like all of these policies and procedures and contracts and whatnot, if it's been something that's been done over and over again? I would expect those to already be in existence, that we wouldn't need to pay you to create something from scratch. They should already be existing, correct? You would just,
Yeah, you just have to alter them to your city codes, look at your city, what your permits are, all those kind of things. And then it would have to get a final approval from your city attorney.
yeah. So, like I said, I'm not against a farmer's market. I have what's in front of me. I have my own experience. I have these emails that came through. I know that there are multiple department heads that reached out to me, and they're nervous about this. They don't see it. And most of all, I'm concerned about the budget. I agree wholeheartedly. I don't believe you were here yet. We had a citizen comment, and the mayor echoed the sentiment that city funds going towards things like this are not really the best use of city funds. And I agree with that. When we have budget shortfalls, we need to really think about where our extra money is being spent. And there's a lot of unknowns with this. And until some of those unknowns from a staffing and finance perspective, I feel like I have to side with staff on this. So it's, I don't think for 26 it's the best fit. I think, maybe 27 we could get something going, but right now there's still too many unknowns for me. So I know there's a lot of other people that want to talk. So with that, I'll yield.
Alderman Sluse.
Thank you, Dawn. As you know, I can't deny it. I am a strong fan of public market. I like the atmosphere. I like the vibe. I think it's bring a sense of community together, especially with what we're going through nowadays. Everything online, people work from home. They just have zero chance to socialize, to meet others. So going to the public market, I think that it'll be something phenomenal, something I will definitely would like. Just a few questions about the Oak Creek market. Anyone knows, when they say that they contribute substantial amount of money on a yearly basis, what is Oak Creek contribution toward the market altogether? No idea.
No, there never was a line item in my budget.
And, the tone of the email is somewhat negative here toward the market, but are they planning to, are they keeping the market, if they have such a difficulty with the market, is Oak Creek planning to continue to maintain a public market, a farmer market in there, to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my knowledge, they will. But also remember that there are different kind of markets. Everybody has a different kind of market. In Oak Creek, so when I created the market, I created it with a bunch of farmers, and they taught me how to create a real, true farmers market. There weren't a lot of real farmers markets around the state anymore, or especially in Milwaukee County. So they helped me create a set of rules and regulations that were very strict. You have to make everything you sell. You cannot have anything on your table that you have bought and are reselling. You have to, have all the insurances, all the permits, all those kind of things. But you also, especially with produce, we have to go do farm visits so that we know that Farm A, when they come to that market, they have grown everything and they're not buying it at Myers the night before and putting it out there. And we see farmers markets that are okay with that because they don't have enough farmers. So the rules that I've created from scratch were very strict. And what it did was it gave us a really great market because now your success of a market is all based on your vendors. A customer will find that market and then will continue to go to that market because of of the vendors, not because of the bathrooms or the parking or all those other things. It's really the quality of the vendors. And by being so strict that you had to be the person standing there that made that, and that had to be made in, locally, it added a relevance to this market. So you go to a South Milwaukee market, they have resale things. They sell things that people bought online. They sell Tupperware. It's a different kind of market. They have food trucks. They sell beer. It's a Thursday. You listen to live music and maybe you pick up a few things. So there's many extremes of different markets. What I saw at the Oak Creek market was the resale vendors coming in. There were vendors selling things that they did not make. And that shows me that that's going in a different direction. Because of the vendors had all left, they had to provide something to the community. So I would assume that they would have a market, just what's the quality of the market? It might be more of a sitting down and listen to music market.
So you probably answered my next question, because could you please shed some light on what you said the farmers are not happy there? So I don't want to specifics, what makes like if someone attending the market, doing a business in the market, and then as a sudden he doesn't like it anymore, is it like you cover the idea of people buy stuff and come and it become a resale shop? Is there any other factors that make the farmers or participant not comfortable going there?
I mean, there's many. But I had a farmer or a vendor tell me just on Saturday, because I run the winter market, that they would be the only one on a whole street with no other vendors. Like, just vendors just didn't start showing up. Well, when I run a market, if you don't show up, you can't come back that next week. Like, you need strict, but if you don't have somebody they respect, if you don't have a farmer's market manager that they respect, then these people chose just not to come. So that hurts that one person on an empty street. So that was that example. But there are many examples of just different ways when I refer to it going in a different direction, that's the polite way to say that it was being run differently than I did. And that's why the farmers market vendors left.
The final thing, you can tell we don't have the expertise or the knowledge to run a public market. We are investing in you. How can you assure us that you will not quit if you get upset with some of us or many of us? So how solid your commitment, at least not to quit halfway mid-season?
Well, we haven't done it yet, so we've been at a lot of meetings. So, like I said, our commitment is to bringing the community. I would assume once we're done with this, that we would get a point person at the city, and then that person is who we would deal with, right? When we have questions, we're not taking them back to you guys for every question we have. So then working with that person, whether it be the health department or somebody running the festival or who our contact would be, then we start to do the paperwork and we start to go out into the community and get sponsorship. I mean, if we can't secure money by the first of the year, that will be a red flag and I'll come back to you.
But you're willing to make a commitment not to quit mid-season?
I am making the commitment not to quit. But once you have a farmer's market manager, come January 1st, you should be all set. You have a paid employee now at that point.
I see. Thanks. I yield.
Alderwoman Eichmann, then Alderman Pecorelli.
Thank you, Mayor. As far as referencing the Facebook post, I assume it was referencing my post, considering the farmer's market would be held in my district. Although it wasn't posted over the weekend, it was posted yesterday. I do take a little bit of offense to that. I feel there's nothing wrong with getting community feedback. I feel it's educating all of us. Had the post, some of the comments, or the majority of the comments been derogative and the want and the need was not there, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. We wouldn't be having these discussions. So I see nothing wrong with putting something out to the general public. It's okay for all the other non-Franklin-oriented Facebook pages to do it. So why couldn't I ask a simple question of feedback of what people in Franklin want, if they want it or if they don't? There was some excellent feedback, both pros and cons, and I have read pretty much each and every comment on there, the good and the bad. I don't feel that this is putting the cart before the horse, because we need to give permission to move forward with this before the next step can be made to see if we can get the sponsorship. If we can't get the sponsorship, there is no farmer's market. So to me, this is not putting the cart before the horse. As far as communication with the staff must be telling one person a story and telling me another. I had a lot of positive feedback from staff willing to help. There were concerns when there was talk of possibly closing the roadway down, safety concerns that were well understood, which is why we changed it to the lower lot of City Hall. Also, out of common respect, I hope that Mr. Vickers was made aware and asked permission to have his personal email to all of us read out loud to everybody and on record tonight. I personally wouldn't have done that without asking his permission, so I'm just going to hope and assume that that was done. And I do appreciate the feedback from him, as well as the Oak Creek mayor. There was also discussion that aside of having a farmer's market coordinator, we would also come up with a farmer's market committee and or coordinate that with the Fair Commission committee, since Fair Commission only meets a couple times a year. I've had an abundance of residents reach out to me that would like to volunteer and help with the market. And if we were to develop a farmer's market committee on its own and not combine with the Fair Commission, I'm pretty confident they already have that filled. Also, there was discussion with the mayor and I, one particular department that would be handling some of this is a key point so that we're not bombarding our city administrator and others when they are the main ones in their department, when there's more staffing in some other departments. There's also talk of the potential of one, if not two, part-time assistant people that could be brought on in the finance department, in which the funds from the sponsorship would cover that. Let's see if I go over everything here. So, I mean, there has been a lot of time, work, and effort put into this. You know, I had somebody else reach out to me. Well, I do respect this email that we got. You know, why is Oak Creek so concerned about, I mean, I know that they want the best interest. Are they worried that we're going to be taking some of their vendors? I don't know. It seems like there's enough vendors to go around for all of the markets. From the information that I've been receiving and looking into, there's a lot of different vendors. I can't believe how many already have reached out to me alone. And I believe a couple of them are ones that Dawn may not even have been aware of, that we didn't know that existed, that are in the local area. So I do think this is something that we should move forward. A resident, one of the many calls I took today, a resident said it best. We've been paying taxes in Franklin for over 50 years. All the tax money that we pay, why can't we have something as simple as a farmer's market and somewhere to go buy fresh produce? And they're right. I, of course, explained some of the background of, you know, everything that's involved in it and the things that we went over tonight, and asked them to also listen into the meeting this evening. So it's not that hard to put together, but it's not that easy either. It's something that I'm confident with our experienced staff that we could easily do and move forward. As Dawn mentioned, I was going to also bring this up. We may not come up with the sponsorship money. If we don't have the sponsorship money, we're not going to move forward with this. Plain and simple. So by approving it this evening, if there's a motion that would be made, it would then give us the go-ahead to see what kind of sponsorship money that we can get. Just in mentioning to a few business owners, they're ready and willing to be sponsors. I've had other business owners in Franklin reach out to me. We have a master list of business owners that would be contacted for sponsorships. And this isn't a one-time deal where, for example, if one company wants to sponsor 5,000, 10,000, whatever it may be, where they don't get recognition. For example, the St. Martin's Fair, where do those businesses receive recognition? Their names aren't on a t-shirt, their names aren't on a banner. This is completely different. This isn't like our civic celebration event where their names of the businesses that donate are in the newsletter and on the back of a t-shirt. This is for 26 weeks in the summer. It's excellent advertising for local businesses.
How many weeks in the summer?
24.
24, okay, that's right, we took 2
And
out.
and that's on average. That is just an average of what farmers markets do. So that when a vendor looks at it and says, should I go here or here? It's apples to apples. So that's, but if we need to cancel it for 4th of July and.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, 4th of July, we had discussed, as well as the weekend of likely St. Martin's Fair. So, and if we move forward with this, we're not married to it. We try it, it doesn't work. We admit that it didn't work, and we carry on without a farmer's market. That simple. Other things that have been brought up, in all fairness, that I feel it's only right to mention, to be transparent, the concern of the pickleball players. Well, that whole area can't be built around just one group. It's the city money that spent $500,000 to build those pickleball courts in the first place. We receive very little to nothing of the funding from pickleball because that goes to the Park and Rec Department. That money goes right back to the school district. It's our Franklin taxpayers that paid $500,000 to have those courts redone. And with being able to park in the upper lot at City Hall, we feel that there would be enough room to go around for everyone as far as parking. Again, this is not meant to be an all-day event like South Shore has and some of the other larger markets out there where they've got food trucks and they have extensive music playing and they want to keep people there all day long. This is simply come, socialize if you want, grab some fresh produce, and leave. It's not meant to be where someone's going to hang out and linger for 2, 3, 4 hours. So that situation is going to help with the parking as well. Anyone who were to rent the pavilion would be told, you know, if you're renting the pavilion at Lions Legend Park, please be aware that we have this farmer's market going on across the street from 9 to 1, so that they have a heads up, and if they choose to rent maybe then Pleasant View Pavilion Park or somewhere else instead, if that bothers them. So, you know, some of those obstacles that were brought up, I greatly appreciate because I think it's important, as I mentioned earlier, to hear all pros and cons, but they're things that we can overcome and try. So with that, I will yield unless I can make a motion.
Mr. Pecorelli is next, if you don't mind.
Thank you. So first, in Oak Creek, if I go back to that for a minute, you said you would meet at the beginning of the farmer's market, and then you'd kind of run everything, and then there'd be like an end of the market. So from a decision-making or anything like that, it was 100% on you? You weren't working with a committee or anything like that with the city?
Correct. I had put together a committee. I thought it was only feasible to have a committee in case there was a grievance against me, right? So that there was somebody I could go to, or that a vendor could go to, or a customer or whomever. It never was ever needed, but it gave me a little sounding board of a group of, and many of them were the farmers that helped me start it. And so they, the city of Oak Creek had like a commission form where they would fill it out, and then they would be part of an ad hoc kind of group, and I would ask them questions if something came up. But no, otherwise, I was given full control of the market, and we made I created a lot of new things that are now across the state. We created something called the Taste of Tent, and it's across the state. Now I go next month to talk about it in California because it's such a success. So a lot of things stemmed from having that creativity. I was an art director. I wasn't born into running events. And so when I was able to retire early, I was able to just kind of put all these creative ideas together and just learn from each other. And now the Farmers Market Association is much more of a sharing of best practices so that we all as market managers can make decisions on our own and don't need a heavy oversight, because we can ask each other questions of what has worked and what hasn't. You know, we believe in it. We put our heart and soul into it. So we would never do anything to not make it succeed.
Thank you. And then I guess my other point is, bless you. My other point is, and I don't know that you were here for this, but essentially we just asked all of our departments to find 5% and cut their budgets. It's if all else being equal, if we didn't ask that, I think we'd be in a different place, in my mind, at least right now. The problem is, we did that. That was how we could get to the budget numbers we needed to get to. My concern is that if we can't get the sponsorship to cover all operating expenses, and that includes on the city side, essentially, we've got positions we're holding open a little longer and everything, right? If we don't have that funding, we just added more work to everyone and we didn't give anything else to them. We actually are holding some back. And to me, that's just, the timing on this is just, in my mind, is not good. I love the idea of a farmer's market. I've gone to farmer's markets. I have not, but I'm looking at the situation we're in today, and I'm looking at what we're dealing with, and I just can't. It's a lot of, in my mind, it's a lot of financial risk that we're taking on, and we already just asked for the 5%, that 5% cut to get to what we needed from a budget standpoint, and that's on our existing, to operate everything as we exist today. So the problem I have is I don't know how we can go and ask all of our departments to cut 5%, and then we're going to add dollars over here and add some extra to what they're doing and expect that's going to work out how we hope it's going to work out. I have, that's a lot of concern in it, and it's not specifically on what you presented or anything like that. It's truly the situation the city's in at the moment.
And completely understand, but until we get that, approval from you to take it to the next step, do we know, do you know that your community is not going to support this? Do you know that CarMax isn't going to give you 20,000, which then covers almost, with 30,000 and 20,000? Do you know that other big manufacturers in this area, the new developers trying to come in, aren't all going to give you 20,000, and then that covers the farmer's market by clear? So yes, it's going to take some of the staff time, and I don't know how you would break that out, but we don't know that your community is not going to support this wholeheartedly and give us more sponsorship than we need. Until we go ask.
So I guess the question is, if we are moving on to the next step, what's the financial ask of the city to get to the next step?
20.
No, I'm not asking for any money from you to go out and solicit sponsors. This money that comes with the creation of the farmer's market, the initial 15,000 we were talking about is from sponsorship money. It's not from you. So I guess if I go and we go meet, or whoever's in your district, and we go meet and they give us nothing and we have nothing, then I don't get paid.
So if we go to the next step and we get 15,000 or whatever in donations, and we start getting everything, and at some point before we actually go to our first event, in, what is it, April, May?
May 6th.
First
May
of May.
6th. Okay, so if something were to occur between then and from when we first started in January 1 or whatever to then the sponsorship, we'd have to, I'm assuming, give back because we didn't actually have something executing. So, and we would be on the hook for whatever we spent. So there is something, I'm not saying that it's high likelihood, but there is risk that we are taking on to go from January 1st, if, let's say we get sponsorship, to the time when we start running. If something occurs, we're on the hook for those dollars because we spent them. And
Mostly
we can't,
city time.
and the city time, correct.
There's nothing else you've spent other than city time.
Well, isn't there, when I read through here, isn't there items that we are purchasing as part of that 15,000?
You're right, correct. You're right.
So all of that would be, we've made purchases and now we're on the hook for them. So that,
Right.
when I say risk, and I get everything's not 100% risk or no risk, right? There's levels of risk all the time. But there is risk in this that we are holding and I want everybody to think through that, excuse me, that we are holding between the time when we start, we go, how much did we get? And there's different levels. If we get a lot more than we were thinking, well, maybe we go, oh, we got some buffer here. Or if we don't, we barely get the minimum that we thought we need to operate, there's risk there that if something were to go wrong or something along the way before we start, we don't have a farmer's market to attach that sponsorship to, and we're going to have to give those funds back, and we're going to be on the hook for them.
Right. Some of those were, tents and weights and, I mean, those would not be purchased still right before the market started, so it wouldn't be tomorrow, but correct. But until you approve it and we have approval that the city wants a farmer's market, we can't go solicit money anyway, so.
So the step would be to solicit money and then come back to council for the next step? Are we soliciting money and going to the market? Like that's where I'm trying to figure out what's the step that we're gonna be here saying we're gonna go to the next step. What is that next step?
Mr. City Attorney? Some of his button.
Potential move this along. Request answers from all the potential sponsors. Would you sponsor and how much? Bring that back without any agreement, any promise whatsoever, and bring that back to a meeting. Next meeting or meeting after, and hear what it is and from whom, how much. Double check it to make sure it's real. And then you know what money would be there up front.
Still have the floor, Mr. Piccarelli, then Alderman Craig.
I'll yield for now.
Alderman Craig.
I got a whole lot of things in a lot of different directions here because listen to a lot of things. So you talk about how you kind of made everything from whole cloth in Oak Creek. What is the learning curve as far as that goes, and how is that going to be as a benefit for us? Because you've already made certain mistakes and things like, I wish I would have done that differently. How is that learning curve going to look here versus what you did years ago in Oak Creek?
I mean, there are things that I did in Oak Creek that I got sponsorship money and just didn't pan out. So, I mean, I do know, especially in this community, when we look at the numbers, when I did data, 48% came from Franklin to the Oak Creek market. So, so you're dealing with your community in that environment as well. Off the top of my head, not a lot failed. A lot, there wasn't anything that was, I am a big proponent of safety. I am over the top with safety and policies and procedures. So, I think those, things that I've learned that way. But working with sponsors, all the sponsors that I got on day one are still my sponsors on year 8.
Okay.
So they like they like their return on their investment, and I would assume I could do the same for this city.
So when you talk about saying if the dollars aren't there, the sponsorship's not there, this isn't happening. What is your go, no go line as far as being able to say, I've done, hit the pavement, gone to this place, that place, everyone has said, they give me $8, they give me $20, whatever. What is the date that you would say this is not financially feasible?
Well, what you have is to be competitive with other farmers markets, you have to, we should start to collect applications on January 1st. That's kind of a statewide thing. Especially the big farmers markets competitively have to have their application ready on January 1st. So I would say by January 1st, if we know that we have the money to back it, then we set out the applications for vendors so that the vendors know that they know that there could be a home here.
So by like the 5th of January, we'd probably be able to say, yeah, this isn't going to happen? Or is that still, give us time, we still need to work some angles and some leads? Or like, what is the point where we'd be able to say, we're going to just put this on the back burner for now until we're, maybe the financial, situation might be changing for company X? How does that look in terms of being able to say, this isn't going to happen, or we're going to go full steam ahead?
Well, what I have started to do is create different avenues of generating sponsorship. So going into it with, for the big players to be, and call them founding sponsors, and ask for $20,000 sponsors for those initial sponsors. I think if we don't see a return on that investment on, and get those people signed up to be those bigger sponsors, I think that would be a red flag right away. And then we would,
So going back to that then, at what point would you say that like CarMax, they're not on board? At what point, is it the first phone call? Is it the third touch that you have with them? At what point are you going to say, I don't think that they're going to come up with the money that we're looking for from them?
oh, I would think it's in the first meeting.
Okay. Now, you also mentioned that if it's not there, you're not going to get paid, right? So does that mean when we look at the creation of the farmer's market, all of this is being done kind of on credit as far as the work hours and the work product that's being created?
Well, when Heidi and I defined what it would take for us to create a market, that was not any of the time and effort we have put in yet. That would be when you say go, that yes, we want a market, then we need to start to create these items. I am better going and soliciting sponsorship. Heidi is better with doing all the paperwork. So we would just divide that until we got got all the pieces together so that you would have a market ready to go when you hired a farmer's market manager.
So with that being said, the work that would be done, you're not expecting to get paid until someone steps forward and said, so if Land by Label says, you know what, put it on the credit card, you're not going to get paid until we swipe their credit card. Am I right on that?
Correct. I am not looking for any money until this is a go.
Okay. And then the last thing, is the memo that was part of our packet with some of the challenges that were kind of being highlighted here. Some of the items really give me pause in terms of the financials. And, I'm going to sound like the broken record here. Others have gone before me and had their own version of this, but, where item 2, the financial impact, the vendor fees may offset some costs, but typically do not cover full expense, especially during the first few years. This will require funding from the city in an annual basis. Right now, you've said that, can't put a dollar amount, don't know. Totally understand that. If you had a crystal ball, I'd ask for the Mega Millions numbers. But that's still something that, as Alderman Pecorelli kind of made the point of where we've had to make significant cuts across all departments. This is going to be asking of an infusion of cash from our funding, and there isn't markers as far as, okay, we're going to get to here, or, it's going to be asking of a much more higher ask in the future or in the present. And then it goes back to the staff of, hey, we know we asked for 5% cut in either supplies, personnel, staffing, conferences, trainings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But now we're going to ask you to, let's see here, where is that page? to set up payment systems for vendor fees or sponsorships, track revenues and expenditures, ensure insurance liability coverage for market is in place, which is not part of their everyday scope today, but we're asking for it to be in addition to. And it goes back to a job I had 4 jobs ago, where every year was, let's do more with less. And it kind of feels like that just on paper. And it may be something that's not a huge lift, but it's still going to be asked as a lift of staff in that regard.
So I don't know what you're referring to as far as that comment and where that comment came from. But I know that I run a winter farmers market. They brought in $45,000 in vendor fees. I run it every Saturday. They aren't in major debt at the Oak Creek Community Center. They're in no debt at all. That $45,000 is theirs. And then I get the sponsorship to cover my salary. Heidi says that she does all the paperwork because TOSA's market is not run through a city. TOSA's is all done by volunteers. And her paperwork that she does at the farmer's market manager is 2 hours a week. And there is nobody doing, you know what I mean? So she knows what it takes and she does the reporting to the state. I just think, I wish you guys would have went to other cities, because you will be a direct conflict to this farmer's market in the city of Oak Creek. And I think maybe that's where you're getting some of this negativity from, and that it's going to take all this time. But I run the winter market 24 weeks, every Saturday at the Oak Creek Community Center. They don't have extra staff. They bill and then they receive the sponsorship money and then they pay a couple of bills, for printing and in my salary. I mean, if it was so taxing, the community center with their 3 employees wouldn't be able to do it.
I'm not taking anything from Oak Creek. I'm
Okay.
looking at the financial aspect as us in a vacuum, especially when we talk, you came on the wrong night. When we talk about the budget, wrong night to talk about an ask above and beyond. But there's a memo that was part of our packet that came from city staff. And there was some concerns regarding some of these things, including where responsibility of the city and city funds for staffing and oversight. That Oak Creek had nothing to do with that.
Okay, I didn't know where you were getting from. I didn't get that.
Okay, so that's where my number one thing, Oak Creek is Oak Creek and they can do their thing and that's great, grand and glorious. But I'm very much of just looking at this from, especially after we went through everything with the budget, when we looked at, having to make cuts and where there's a lot of, this was, I think Alderwoman Day or Alderman Pecorelli said this, was that this is probably the worst year you could have asked for, or where this kind of came to fruition as far as a possible ask, because everything is,
Understood.
there is very little, if any, meat on this bone as far as.
Understood, but maybe if you turn it around, maybe it is the best time for the community to have something like this that can come together, that can celebrate, that can support local business, that can do all the great things that a farmer's market does. It's never meant to make money. It's to provide an event where people come together, where, the local kids are selling water and you're teaching children about fresh vegetables. I mean, it's not supposed to be a moneymaker or cost a ton of money. It's supposed to be something for the community. And, it is all the greatest things that can come to your community. And right now, your community is going to Oak Creek to do it. So if you want one, yes, you're going to have some commitment from the city as far as some time, but you have a perfect storm in place. Vendors they will find another market. I mean, They are not going to sit around on Saturdays. I know a lot of people ask why Saturday. Saturday mornings especially, it's for farmers. Farmers are the hardest to find. There's not a lot of farmers in this community left in, southeastern Wisconsin. And so to be able to choose the best time for farmers, they pick that morning, they pick that night, and so then they're ready to go to market on a Saturday morning. I did it at 9 o'clock for the farmers because many of them travel an hour and a half to get to this area. And so you don't want it to be, at 8 a.m. because they still have to, drive that far. And they're looking, the vendors that I know are looking for a Saturday morning market. Yes, you can look at a Thursday. They're going to be tiny markets, but yes, they could be sustainable. But your farmers, your big farmers are looking, it takes them an hour and a half to load the trucks. And then they usually most of them drive about an hour and a half to get to Oak Creek. So same here, but it is the best quality. That's why we generated $1.2 million in sales, 4 hours on a Saturday for, 24 weeks. I mean, people wanted it. People appreciated it. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
So we'll go with Alderwoman Day, then Alderwoman Eichman, then Alderman Pecorelli.
Okay. I have a couple of follow-ups to some of Alderman Craig's questions. So, and again, this is all finance-based, right? So, the couple of things that you had just said that, Oak Creek was $1.2 million. Yet, I mean, and understandably, it is one market, but that is the one that you just quoted. They're still saying they're in the red. So,
No, I'm sorry, 1.2 in sales. So vendors made $1.2 million.
Gross sales.
So it just shows you the success of the market. That is not part of the money
Gotcha.
aspect.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So if we go back to kind of the questions about, and this is Alderman Pecorelli and Alderman Craig. So the next, all the paperwork we have here is like, the next step. Okay, so the next step after this evening, if it makes it through, would be you would start seeking those sponsorships, correct? And you'd be doing the legwork and so say we get, some sponsorships going and, but, to Alderman Pecorelli's point, say we don't get enough, to move forward, then we have to worry about paying that money back that we don't have. So, say we start buying, some of those pieces of equipment that we need, whether it's, tents or whatnot, or, your time, and all of a sudden, it dries up and we're not able to put it on. We then have to come back and refund that money to those sponsors. You had just said that it's not a moneymaker. And I agree. And that's, the choices that some of those communities made was, that you're not going to make money off a farmer's market. Absolutely not. And I don't think anyone is trying to make money off of it. But the fact of the matter is we don't have a lot of extra money to give to it, knowing that it's going to probably be in the red for a while, just to get it started. I mean, that's not to say that after a few years, it might be neutral. It might not be as far in the red, but it will be in the red. And I don't know where that money is going to come from that is more important than some of the other big ticket items that the city has coming down the road. Deferred maintenance on a number of things and staffing freezes and whatnot. All of those are very real concerns. And outside of the actual dollars and cents, the human capital that's involved in this from the city staff perspective, we're not taking that into account. And I'm gonna defer to the people that are sitting here right now. We've got 4 department heads right now that are greatly impacted by this that I would like to hear from, because the human capital is almost more than the actual dollars and cents, because we are so lean staff-wise. You push this too far on some of these departments, they will break. And it's not like there's a plethora of municipal workers out there. We steal from each other. I mean, that's how we get employees. There's a small pool of people that want to work in municipal government, and we have some of the best. And I don't want to lose them because we're pushing too far. And to me, this is a bridge too far this year. So I would like to allow, if they're willing, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but if Director of Finance, Director of Administration, Director of Health, DPW Superintendent, if they have any comments or concerns, now is the time that I would like to hear them, because this is an important decision that we need to make going forward. So that is my ask. I'll certainly yield to the other alders if they want to speak first, but before we do any sort of voting on this, I would like to hear from them if they have anything they'd like to say.
So with that, I know we were going to go with, I believe, Alderwoman Eichman or Alderman Pecorelli first. So Alderwoman Eichman, then Alderman Pecorelli, and then at some point, I'd like to chime in on some points too.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted, this is more directed towards the city attorney. How can we move forward in collecting sponsorship money when there isn't some type of commitment? Since Carmex was brought up earlier, I'll just use that as an example. We go knock on their door and say, hey, you want to be a part of this? Would you be willing to be a sponsor? And they say, well, we would, but we heard all over social media that there's no commitment from the city yet and it didn't pass. So why are we giving you our money and what are you going to do with it? And I would almost feel like a motion, and again, I'm not the city attorney, I'm not the expert, I don't try to even play an attorney on TV, so no offense, but I was thinking a motion more along the way of, and I'm not making the motion right now either, to move forward with collection of donations to fund a possible City of Franklin 2026 farmers market, something along that line, so we have some teeth in this when we go out to collect sponsorship money than just, I mean, we need something. And we would also need more than 1 or 2 meetings. You're not going to collect this. And our next meeting's a week from today. We need more time than that, realistically. So that is just what I wanted to bring up, and I'll yield for the time being.
Just one quick comment on that. You're not going to go knock on Carmex's door and ask for cash money. You can ask them for a letter of commitment. At least you have the letter of commitment that you know that that's what you're going to use. You're not going to take the money and put it in the bank. You're going to get a letter of commitment. And I really hope that, well, I'm going to say this for a little bit later. Mr. Pecorelli.
All right, so you brought up the winter market earlier. So who runs the winter market? I think before you said that it's not city affiliated.
It is not.
So who actually runs it?
Oak Creek Community Center.
And are they a nonprofit then? And so then they, and where I'm going with this is, and I'm making a guess, and I'm going to look at others to fill in. Is the nonprofit operating with different constraints than the city would operate under, and therefore can do things that the city can't do and or needs to fund or do things differently than the nonprofit? Is that correct?
I don't know.
I don't know all the exact answers, but I know it's definitely run completely different than a municipality running it.
Okay.
It would be different, right, in the salary and how the salaries are paid, because they would have to be, these two
They'd
have
be
to be
contractors.
employees, but we're contractors.
Yeah, and then from an insurance standpoint, I'm assuming
All vendors have insurance.
all vendors have the insurance to cover, okay. And then, and where I'm going with it, excuse me, apparently I can't talk anymore today. Where I'm going with this is that the city, I think some of the things we're running into as we're talking through this is because we're trying to have the city operate it. And I think that my gut is, as I'm listening to all this, is it's adding constraints in here. Payments, how the processes we have to follow, those types of things, than if it was a nonprofit. And I'm guessing that's what gives some of the differences between the two and maybe allows some efficiencies on a nonprofit side that the city can't take advantage of. And that's, I guess, as I'm listening to this, I'm wondering if that is some of the, like, health, we talked about the health department and inspections and everything. How does that work from the?
It is still a city if you had a nonprofit, your city of Franklin would still have to do the,
Yep.
yes.
So then that is handled through the rental, I'm assuming some kind of agreement with, that was done for them hosting it through the community center?
No, for any event that happens in your city health department is responsible, whether it be,
Correct. But the fee, where I'm going with it is it's gonna cost the city money to do that, right? So where are they getting the income?
and that's not just a farmer's market, that would be any event that happens within your city is paid for then through taxpayer dollars to cover that.
So is there a fee that we charge for any of that stuff to recoup?
The city of Oak Creek charges a fee for permitting for each vendor,
Extraordinary event.
extra money that they pay to cover those costs.
Okay. And so, yeah, so there's gonna need to be a permit of some sort that we're using, whatever that is, to account for that, for each vendor. Okay,
So it's paid for by the vendor.
okay. Thank you.
So, we've talked a lot about this. I had an opportunity today to talk to Lauren Gottlieb, our Health Department Director, and we talked about some challenges. I thought that that would be the first point of contact would be the Health Department, and how that would look, we don't know yet. Okay, work through that. When you look at, to some people, that, you know, you're going to find fault in anything, okay? People that are going to find, they're going to have a smug attitude about, well, what about this? What about that? We're trying to get ahead of the whatabouts. But the end goal is to get a farmer's market. And my challenge is to those up here, if not now, when? If not by this young lady, then who? I mean, we've got someone that has the infrastructure knowledge, that knows how to guide it, is on the board of directors. Wow. Okay, let's look at that resume. You like resumes, former mayor? That's a resume. And when you look at that and how this thing could get done, we're looking at a pathway. To Alderman Day's point, fine, we can have department heads come up here and also discuss their concerns, which probably mirror all our concerns with what negative impact would that be on staff. Yes, staff is stretched. We are all stretched, and we're trying to get the job done without having a negative impact on services, core services to the city of Franklin residents. I think everybody up here, we all get that. But how can we make that happen? And that's the sponsorship. Now, if you went knocking on Carmex's door and Karma Lab says, yeah, we will give you a letter that says we intend to donate $20,000 to sponsor this. And then we go to JPM Financial Services, and they're like, well, yeah, we'll give you a grant, but we can also, we put the caveat is any money we collect for this, if this does not go, you get it back, because we're not going to be spending it. And that's how this would move forward. But I just want to make sure that, you know, these are very simple questions, I think, you know, is if not when, if not now, when? Could we wait a year? Maybe. Could we lose out on a lot of opportunities? Probably. Are we strapped now? Yes. There's things, but, you know, okay, let's say, God willing, we're all here in a year from now. And the same question comes up. What, do we get any different answers? Probably not. We'll have the same concerns, same what ifs, and we're here to, I just want to, you know, look that if we can move this thing forward to find out what kind of financial commitment we have, great. If we don't get the financial commitment that we need, then we can't put forth. But I think that's, you know, in the last hour plus of going through this, I think we've covered and uncovered and recovered every possible point that could be brought up. So I would like now, if there is a department head here that would like to come up here and give their feedback on this at this point, but you kind of know where we're at, can feel free. If not, we will continue to move on with the meeting. Sure, Director, come on up. I know you were enthusiastic today.
Hi. Hello, Lauren Gottlieb with the Health Department. I just feel it's critical to talk because I think our department will have a lot of involvement, and thank you to the mayor because that is the first formal conversation I had about the farmer's market idea was this morning about 14 hours ago. So my head is like ping-ponging and spinning, and I have all of this, and I've listened to all the meetings. So to your point, I think there's a lot of unknowns. And from the health department perspective, it's not necessarily uncharted territory of what I would expect our involvement to be. It's more that I would love if there was some kind of outline or business plan, some kind of like
Structure.
packet of information. I think that could be helpful. Because just for example, some of the things that we do, which you all know, an example of how we kind of manage this would be civic celebration. So John Bergner solicits vendors. He collects all of that information, brings it to us, and we as a staff, our administrative staff and our sanitarian staff are responsible for vetting portions of that application after the clerk's office has already pre-vetted it and done the background checks. And then we do inspections on site. So depending on what the vendors end up looking like, I think that that could look a lot different and demand a lot of different things from staff. But St. Martin's Fair is another good example because they have a variety of goods that then sometimes yield hours long of conversations pre-event. So I think it'd be helpful to know, like, well, the market manager who won't be you, I'm understanding you're like explicitly stating. So the market manager will not be someone that's sitting in the room right now. So I just would like to have it on paper saying, well, the market manager would be expected to do this. Staff would be expected to do this, and then us just all live in the reality to know it could be a lot of hours on staff, and if that's something that we're looking to dedicate staff time to, I think that needs to be a conversation, because also we've had experiences in which we're not having anything that isn't prepackaged, and then we go there to the event that swore they weren't, or the vendor that was not going to be serving something, and then we end up having to license them, inspect them, and spend 4 more hours with them. So I just think that's a reality that's worth putting out there. Definitely not saying either that I'm opposed to a farmer's market. I think that if you look to city staff who could be a big advocate of a farmer's market, nutrition, physical activity, wellness, community connection, that could be the health department. However, we have one full-time sanitarian who's here with me today, and then we have 0.1 FTE sanitarian, and these are the registered sanitarians who do inspections of licensed establishments. So we've been able to secure a grant to grant fund the other one up to 0.4, which has gone on for years, and this is going to be our first year without that grant funding due to unexpected challenges coming down through our grant streams. So while, of course, I'm willing to take on responsibilities that are asked of me, I also am trying to be very cautious for the responsibilities that we have. So I think a template could be helpful, just moving forward off of that topic. And also, we just can never fund any more FTEs for people to do inspections. So I think we would have to be very crisp in our language and our plan of if we truly are planning to do fruits, veggies, prepackaged items and what that's going to look like. And then also live in the reality that we've seen this happen. Community members might start coming to it and then say, you know what, I don't want to come anymore because there's not scones and there's not corn and there's not lemonade. And then all of a sudden the community is rallying and now we really want this other type of market or else we're going to go down the street. I think we need to just be prepared for that as well. If we need to pivot, do we have the capacity and are we willing to financially support it? So I'll kind of leave it at that. I didn't prepare a big thing and I want to leave it with a positive light, we're willing, and I think it's something that we could do if the right parameters are in place and there's funding there, there's a plan set forward, and there's solidified details that we can approve on, not necessarily all the ins and outs. but like the structure of how this could look and how it would go forward.
Alderman Eichmann.
Thank you. Lauren, when I wasn't able to reach you, and I had sent an email that outlined everything for each department, but in looking through the emails, that may have gotten caught up in when we had the computer switch over, because it looks like it didn't go through to you, where what Dawn sent to me, I sent it to you, sent it to the mayor, finance director, city administrator, several different people. You didn't receive that from me, or the breakdown
didn't,
of everything?
no,
Okay.
didn't either.
And then one of the times I tried reaching you, I talked to Angie as far as inspecting the food, and the discussion that was had, well, I respect everything in that you just said. There could be a new vendor try to sneak in, that's selling something that's not just fresh produce. It was my understanding, my conversation with Angie, that because it would be the same vendors, market after market, they wouldn't have to be inspected every Saturday. Is that correct? And they'd only have to be inspected a couple of times a year? Or can you go into that?
Sure. And also, since you're here, I'm not going to speak on your behalf, so feel free to come up at any point. But yes, in a well-structured, perfect world, sure. I think a good example of this is the umbrella bar. So we had probably finessed that after 4 years of working with the coordinator there. So the intention is, yes, of course, it's going to be much simpler to have the same reoccurring vendors that are coming and ones that we've licensed and or vetted already. But that's not always the reality because of a lot of different reasons. Like their truck broke down, they couldn't get the food. And then that business isn't necessarily wanting to let those profits go, so they're going to try to fill the spot. So again, I know nothing about your track record. I have nothing to say of if this will or won't work, but just trying to live in the reality of it would be wonderful to have 60 spots filled. People might pay their fee and not be able to come, or I'm not really sure how that structure works. But it could also take a turn that then we have vacancies, but our customers want a product of having more vendors there. What if people aren't showing up? Then it just might be a lot of turnover with our eyes needing to be on things, which again, not that we're not willing, like we are willing to do that, but it also will just come at a time cost that we have to consider.
Thank you, especially with not having prepared food for sale and not having the food trucks. I wouldn't think that the inspection part of it wouldn't take that long. And we would need to be very strict, and I believe Dawn and I have discussed this, of having vendors. We couldn't just have a vendor all of a sudden show up unexpectedly on a Saturday and decide to start selling chocolate chip cookies that they made in their house. Everyone has to do a background check. It'd be a similar concept to St. Martin's Fair, actually, vendor-wise and so forth. And if somebody just shows up with a product that you're not aware of or that's not approved by the health department, they simply would be asked to leave. They couldn't sell it.
Right, and I think there's I don't want to get too much like deep in these details because I think there's a lot of other pauses along the way. But to that point, I think that does also require eyes that we don't necessarily have the staffing time for. So I think if we're looking of how we're going to use market funds, is that to offset 0.1 to 2 FTEs of an inspection staff to be on site from 9 to 1 to do inspections? Because I won't know if that scenario unfolds. Again, I'm like cautious to get really deep into that conversation because obviously there's a lot of unknowns, but I think that could be within that like outline of I would aim for 60 vendors. If they didn't come, we're not backfilling those spots. Licensed establishments would have to submit their paperwork within 48 hours and whatnot.
Right. So as how we have done it in the past and how we would do it in the future and best practices across the state is that I would need an application. I would check all that they, that they're, either working under the cottage law or how they fit into the market. I would need their insurance. I would need a hold harmless. I would need, all that paperwork has to be filed. Then it would be billed, then they would pay. So then there would be a master list of those vendors. Those 60 vendors are the same vendors. At no point do I just call up Jill, who makes cookies, because she's under a cottage law. She would need insurance with this, with, with Franklin's name on it. Like, there's a process in there. How we would do it in this, or how they did it in the city of Oak Creek was that it would be periodic inspections, not just surprise inspections.
And I think in the city of Oak Creek, they do have prepared foods and they do have, yeah. So there's a little bit of a confusion between prepared foods and foods that require licensing and foods that require research and conversations with those vendors ahead of time. So I don't want to get to we're obviously not the only department involved here. It's too many details. We would just like to make the point that I think it would require extra staff time. Same as it does for Civic Celebration, St. Martin's, Umbrella Bar. We have conversations. It's not necessarily all on-site inspection time. There's a lot of, yes, you're a home baker, but are you making cheesecake? Nope, that's not allowed. So there's a lot of conversations and then follow up on that. So if, like Lauren was suggesting, if there's some sort of job duties of who's doing what, the on-site market manager is verifying that they're only making what they need.
That's on their application?
Yes, that they're not bringing now whipped honey, which is a whole different
Absolutely.
situation. So
And we know that as farmers market managers, we know the basics of what
Perfect.
we're looking at.
that's
And I think to that, just kind of to put a bookend to that, that is why that document would be helpful for a reassurance of you're not going to be the person. And we don't know who the person will be because it kind of flips between like, no, it won't be city staff. Yes, it will be this person that's hired. Like our involvement with them is kind of vague. So I think it would be really nice to have just like from your knowledge, if you're stepping into this to help set it up, presented to us a list of expectations of, yes, it's not going to be you, but this person needs to have knowledge on this and this and this. And if these vendors appear with items that are outside of our rules, if that's how we structure it, the on-site coordinator will do this, like just more specific versus like cloudy visions of kind of, for me, like not saying your vision's cloudy, mine, of just like processing this all kind of rapidly.
Right, and you understand, we're not to that point yet. That's why we don't have that information. We need approval from the city that we should even proceed.
Right. I think it's a difficult scenario though, because it kind of goes hand in hand. Like I guess, you like have to decide based on not having a proposition of outlined, and then it's like, I don't know what comes first. It's really hard. So that's why I just wanted to speak that of when it comes forward to us, we are capable people, professionals, and willing to help and assist. And then also just like, if one thing comes up, we have to drop another thing at that time. Like, it's just like a balance that we'll have to maneuver.
Okay, fair enough, thank you. And the reason, just as you two didn't want to get deep into the weeds of everything that, all the involvement with your department this evening, that's part of why we didn't want to bother you with getting too deep into the weeds with everything unless this was going to move forward. You know, why have you go into all those details, everything, if this weren't to move forward?
Right. I think that I'd also be very willing of if it's looking like we need collective feedback from all the departments, like I would certainly be willing to prepare that piece of the outline for a farmer's market of like, if the health department was involved, like this is how I can see it being really successful. We could pull in like the applications that we use for St. Martin's Fair. We can talk about like administratively of like, this is what we would expect. So there could be a fuller picture from our department. Like, I think that could certainly work. We just couldn't do anything. Right. Like, I just didn't know where the conversation was going to go.
Right.
So now that it's kind of going quicker, I just want to make sure to say those things.
And that would be something that could be brought in front of the Farmers Market Commission / Fair Commission, or whichever direction that we take to move forward. We could also set up, of course, meetings with you and Dawn and Heidi, you know, one-on-one to go over the health department aspect of things too.
Yeah, I think it's just important to make sure that everyone has delineation of roles. What is the commission's role? What is our department's role? What is the market manager, the day of coordinator's role, so that we don't get in a position where we are now staff time, we're there 6 hours on a Saturday managing a market where we just don't have the staff time for that. We have 186 brick and mortar establishments that I need to be spending my time in as well.
Right.
That they pay license fees. They expect us to be involved with their businesses.
Right, especially in the summers when you're busy doing food trucks and so forth. I respect that.
And pools and.
Right. And again, before we can get to that
Yep.
point, we just need a commitment that we first need to see if we can raise the sponsorship money. Because if we can't, there's no need to bring the health department in, type of a thing. And of course, everything would be black and white. It would not be fair to you and your time and your department whatsoever if you didn't know your roles and responsibilities. Dawn is very organized. We would have something down black and white that you, of course, also would have input with and mutually agreed to of rules and responsibilities. It wouldn't just be like, hey, it's going to start May 6th, show on up. We would go over all of that and have several meetings too, for clarification purposes. Oh, yelled for now.
Kelly?
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren, and Angie, for your response. I actually was pulling the microphone towards me and turning it on to speak, and then just hadn't said that I would provide my response. I would love to have that kind of community focus, to have a farmer's market, to do more, to offer more for families. I think that's wonderful. I think the camaraderie and just community as a whole is extremely important. I also think equally important is not over maxing ourselves. And as a city, I have a number of concerns. I think probably the most pressing thing for me is, and I'm just going to say it because I feel like it's almost like a big elephant in the room. The urgency, the rush on this is making me feel anxious. There's so many unknowns. There's no plans that are concrete. We don't have it all set up and we can read a manual and just follow it step by step. The impacts are unknown, but we do know that the impacts will be time and money. Two resources that we are significantly short on, and one that is an unrenewable resource that I know for myself I don't have enough of, and I'm certain all of the directors also do not have enough of. So from that perspective, I love the idea of like a nonprofit taking this over, having it on city grounds 24 weeks out of the year, but I really struggle with asking our staff to do more. And, the roles and responsibilities and stuff, it almost sounded like a second employer to me and a second job. And I also struggle with a $1.5 million profit and not giving anything to cover that expense to have that for that community. So I think that should be really a wash for the city. And with the way this budget was, it was extraordinarily more difficult than last year, and last year was difficult. And it just keeps getting more difficult. And we don't have a backup plan, and we don't have an emergency plan because we don't even have a plan for this. And all of that is very frightening to me, especially as we go through and continue to struggle and we can't put a compensation plan together. And I think putting more on employees right now is not the right thing to do. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
My turn?
Adam, Director of Finance, you got the floor.
So before I say my opinion, I want to make 2 comments. And the first comment I want to make is I don't want the council to think that my department is the only one that has a say in this. There are, if Dawn didn't list 5, 6, 7 departments on the document, public health, DPW, finance, police, IT, didn't include administration, legal, inspections. Taking Oak Creek out of this and taking my personal opinion out of this, the city's budget is struggling. Oak Creek's budget was in the red every year. We did not ask them to provide a complete detail of their revenue and expenditures, how much time and money it took to run this farmer's market every year, but they were very clear that it's in the red every year. Time and money is their biggest expense of this farmer's market. My second comment is I'm extremely disappointed. To Kelly's point at the urgency of this, I understand the urgency, but the fact that this has been a discussion for 3 weeks now, and not one time has all the department staff that is to be asked of all of this burden on them had a conversation in one room together. There's been a conversation here, and half of the staff hasn't even been talked to, or tonight is their first hearing of this. I think that the urgency is way too much for the city to take on. I'm for a farmer's market. To be honest, I've never been to one. I don't eat fruits or vegetables, so
That's your secret.
that's my secret. But moving this to a later date where all department heads can be involved. Some of the unknowns, I understand that there will be unknowns at any point, but some of the very large concerning unknowns I think need to be answered. I think other municipalities need to be talked to. Like I said, taking Oak Creek out of this, not having the full picture from other people that do this on an annual basis puts us in a position where it's going to require a lot of additional staff time to really understand what putting this on looks like every year. And I don't know, operationally and financially, city staff is going to be in dire need of additional time and money that we just don't have.
Are you yielding?
I will yield.
Okay. So to try to bring this home, Counselor. Not yet. We have another half hour to talk about this. So one of the things that going through this is Madam Clerk's going to be checking on some things about how long it took us to take the St. Martin's Fair from Hills Corners to Franklin and what that all entailed. So now from 1958 to 2025, lots of things have changed. So Alderwoman Eichmann, earlier you were going to propose a motion. Did you still want to, because you never said it, which is a good thing, because now we've got a lot more clarity. Is there any motion that you want to make? You don't have to.
With direction of the city attorney, a motion to move forward in obtaining letters of commitment to fund a potential 2026 City of Franklin Farmers Market.
Thoughts, Mr. City Attorney?
Same thing I said around an hour ago.
Which was?
Find out, without any guarantees or agreements, find out who might sponsor this and how much they would contribute as a sponsor. Bring it back to the council.
So that would be my motion.
Well, when he says bring it back to the council, there, you want to have a date with that. And I think a realistic date. I don't know how we would get anything in less than a month. I mean, less, plus to bring Danielle's points up, yeah, we want to have the meeting with the department heads and get the feedback, but your motion right now as it sits, do you want to put a time on there? Because I know whatever your time is going to say, Dawn's going to come back and say, well, now we're
I was just
pushing
going to
down.
ask that. If that's the motion, Dawn, can you just state to the council what that means for you? I assume you won't be able to move forward at all if there's not a 100% yes tonight. Are you committed to go out to sponsors and ask for letters of commitment and then come back to the city in a month?
Right. I feel uncomfortable by not having a commitment of the city. How do I go and just ask for money when the Common Council hasn't even said that they even want one, that there is no vote that you want one? How do I spend another 40 hours of my time to dedicate it to this project if you're not even sure that I can get some money, right? So, and from the very beginning, it was I don't know your community. You have to help me identify who to go ask for it. You know, who it's going to, you know, so it's not me all by myself. It would be with the dedication of this common council and the commitment from the city. And so if it's not the right time, it's not the right time. It is very much like you said, it is this time might not happen again, but even with, you know, a nonprofit, you know, if you looked at it through some of those different ways, you know, a nonprofit pulls it up, you're still going to need, the health department's going to still have all those issues. You know, there might not be the billing, but otherwise, you know, there's going to still need to be, you know, the police department and all those things that we have identified, whether you're a nonprofit or not, it would still be in your city. So those commitments from those city departments would be the same. Yeah, you know, I personally would love a commitment that the city will work with me to go get the money that it needs to put it on. But if you don't think that that will work.
Alderwoman, you still got the floor?
As far as not having a solid motion, it's almost like going out and petitioning businesses.
Right.
Like, hey, we may have this, we may not. Would you sign on the dotted line? Would you not? And that's not an easy challenge
It is a challenge. You're correct.
without having a commitment. Isn't there a way where we could make a commitment based upon if we don't get the sponsorship money that does not have us obligated? Where it's fair to both parties? I mean, and I would think that Dawn would have, and this was discussed earlier, probably an hour ago. You understand that if we wouldn't come up with the sponsorship money, that the city couldn't fund it. That was already said. But there has to be some type of a way or a motion that we move forward. But heaven forbid, we don't get the sponsorship money, the city's not on the hook. There's got to be an in-between.
I don't know, I'm going to defer to city council on that, but if you're looking for a flow chart, if this then that, I don't think that flow chart exists. Right now it doesn't. Not with the time constraint. 6 months ago, we could probably put something together.
6 months ago, the vendors didn't know they were going to.
I'm just giving it as an example of time, Alderwoman. Mr. City Attorney? Oh, it was on.
Same thought.
Refresh our memory from an hour and a
It's
half
what the
ago.
facts are. Here's what you got. Here's where you are. I have heard from nearly all council members need the money to do this. And so go to the potential sponsors out there in the community and ask, if this moves forward, would you be willing to sponsor? And if so, for how much? That's it.
How would you frame that in a motion?
Well, I don't know if the potential private sector work with the city person is willing to do it. She said no. The answer is no, the motion won't go anywhere unless somebody on city staff just might do that, maybe the director of economic development.
So pardon, John. So
I offered and volunteered my time to provide Dawn with the list of all Franklin businesses and to help her. Mayor, you had also committed to helping with all your free time.
And we know
Sarcastic.
We got 182 inspection
Having,
places.
introducing her to the people in the business park and so forth. I mean, I'm willing to make that commitment because I care about the city that much and bringing this into the community. And the other volunteers of residents that have stepped up wanting to do the same as well. We'd welcome any alders, but
All
no
right,
one seems to
a
want to give
motion.
that extra mile.
And then Mr. Sluse.
motion to authorize the mayor and Alderwoman Eichman to provide Ms. Gorilla with potential sponsor contact information and request Ms. Gorilla to undertake those contacts and provide information back to the city as to potential sponsors and the amount sponsorship would provide for the potential farmers market. Get back to the council.
When? That's
The
the kicker.
second meeting in December.
Okay, so that's your motion. Is that your motion?
Is that realistic?
I mean, I have never worked this way before. I would love for you to vote that the city has a commitment to have a farmer's market so that we can do both things. One is I will go get the money, but also before January 1st, all the rest of the items need to be done. So without your commitment to Heidi and I, that there needs to be a farmer's market, granted, we go after that commitment and we can't find any money, we bring it back to you and go, this might not have been a great idea, but at least I have the commitment from you guys that we will continue to do the work that is getting money and the work that is all the other things. But without that commitment from the city, I don't see how I'm just going to go ask for money.
And I just want to make it clear that by committing to this, you are asking the city taxpayers to fund a city market if there isn't enough sponsorship to not only cover the farmer's market salary, everything that's listed here. So you're asking for enough sponsorship to the on-site coordinator, the farmer's market manager, the advertising, the entertainment, all city staff on the internal end. And you're asking that maybe for just 2026, but all those same sponsors need to do this on an annual basis and more if you want to continue to keep this thing running annually.
Thank you for your feedback, Alderman Salus.
Just a question to you. The amount of money that you need to raise initially is 15,000. Okay. I am willing to make a motion to support and move forward with it. But the question I have, or the caveat, if you feel like, you collected 10,000 and your effort was short of reaching the goal, is there a possibility if the project gonna go south, is there a possibility that the donation could be refunded or returned to the donors?
Right, if you go in as a sponsorship and we don't have a market, you have to return that money, correct?
Based on that, I make a motion to support and move.
I made the
So
motion. You need a second.
we're gonna get crazy with Robert's Rules of Order. So everybody goes like this for a minute. Breathe. Alderwoman, you had the motion? It's not that cold in here, Kelly.
The motion.
As
Jesse,
presented.
The motion as presented, my first will hold with the current motion as presented.
That the city attorney said, and then coming back December what, Madam Clerk?
16.
December 16th, December 1/6. Okay, that's your motion?
Yes.
All right, that's a first. What? Good. That's a first. Is there a second?
I will second.
Oh, you,
I want the motion to support, that's where I stand.
okay, we got a first and a second. This
You
is,
had a pending motion
we have a motion by Alderwoman Eichman,
that was waiting for a second.
and now it is seconded by
By me.
Alderman Hassan.
Yep.
And this will be a roll call, absolutely a roll
And
call.
can I add a comment? At that point, we would see
Sure.
if we have the $15,000. If we don't have it, then that answers our question.
But she need the commitment.
Well, that's what we're doing tonight to let her move
No,
forward.
it's not. That's not the motion.
Is
that
your
is-
motion
Not a motion
is that she-
commitment.
All right,
Giving
Mr.
the
City
commitment.
Attorney, hold on. Mr. City Attorney, can you please herd this back in and bring us home with what is exactly the motion, so then Alderwoman can agree with it, and then we can amend the second if needed.
There was no commitment involved. It was just a petition, bring the information back. And for whatever it's worth, I don't want to, 15,000? That's nothing compared to what the cost spoken about was on this earlier.
Okay. With that said, does your motion stand?
We can alter the motion to have more of a commitment.
Well, let's do this. We've got a first, we've got a second. Do the roll call vote on this one, please.
Alderman Craig?
No.
Alderman Salus?
No.
Alderwoman Day?
No.
Alderman Hassan?
Yes.
Alderwoman Eichman?
Aye.
Alderman Peccarelli?
No.
4 noes, 2 yeses, motion fails. Is there any other motion to come
Can I
back with
make
this?
my motion to move forward in support of the farmer's market with the caveat if she fails to raise the $15,000 that the donations would be returned to their donors? If there's
Well, that was the given that we were talking about.
Okay,
That
if
was
that's
gonna-
given, then my motion will be to support and move forward with the farmer's market.
So did he?
Okay, Mr. City Attorney, want some clarification here, please, because it appears that was the same motion just failed.
No,
it's the
her
opposite.
motion does not
Hold
entail
on,
the support.
Mr. City Attorney.
Motion is to proceed and move forward with the proposal to create and manage a farmer's market.
So you're going with what the city attorney
That's
said?
correct.
Okay, that's a first. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. This will be a roll call as well.
Alderman Peccarelli?
No.
Alderwoman Eichman?
Aye.
Alderman Hassan?
No.
Alderwoman Day?
No.
Alderman Salus?
Aye.
Alderman Craig?
No.
4 noes, 2 ayes, motion fails. Moving on to, sorry.
Can we take, Mayor, can I request a
Well,
5-minute
this,
recess?
well, this should be about 5 minutes or less, right,
Well,
Chief?
I'm going
Maybe
to
3?
step out, though.
You can step out. All right. Fire Chief to provide an update, very brief update on the fire department facilities and mold remediation project at Fire Station Number 1. Real quick, and for the record, it's 9:22 PM. Alderwoman Eichman is stepping out. Assistant Chiefs, welcome. This should be real quick. Go ahead.
Mold remediation, can you feel the excitement?
I do.
My assistant chiefs talked me out of my 75-slide PowerPoint presentation.
Well done. Just bring it.
So we're in week 2 of the project at Fire Station 1. The contractor has very aggressively opened up the areas of concern. There was black mold present in the identified areas of concern. The good news is that the remediation has gone smoothly, and we believe that the remediation will be completed by the end of this week. They have also set up air scrubbers that are working to clean the atmosphere in the building. We have duct cleaning for all of the HVAC ducts that's going to be beginning tomorrow, trying to cover all the bases for all areas of the building. A couple of red flags that appeared that we wanted you to be aware of. We did have some extensive damage to some cabinets that were made out of particle board, so that likely will require some replacements when we go to rebuild or restore the interior of the fire station. And most troubling is that during the water testing initially, I know Alderman Salus last meeting had asked about moisture, if that was found in the walls. During the water testing by the contractor, we did have some minor leakage that was noted on the lintels, which is the top of the windows, brick walls on the outside. That area was worked on during the Johnson Control Project over the summer. So we are actively working to bring that vendor and that contractor back to stem these water leaks, to seal the outside shell of the building. And that's our unknown right now. That's going to affect our timeline as well as our budget. So we'll have some updates on that at the, hopefully by the next meeting. Most importantly, I wanted to highlight the areas that were of our services that are impacted. Our two substations, Fire Station 2 and 3.
9:24 PM, Alderman Reichman has returned. I have to do that.
Roger that.
So bring us home.
They, Fire Station 2 and 3 do not have any meeting rooms. They don't have any training rooms. So we're very cramped in our operations right now. So we've had to curtail all of our public education activities that include our CPR classes, Stop the Bleed, station visits, that kind of thing. And also our meetings with the public and for inspection reasons. Like, for example, tomorrow our staff is meeting with the Costco development team. We don't have any space to host them at our station, so we're borrowing some rooms from City Hall. It's just kind of an example of that. All the city facilities are cramped. What else did I miss from?
Is there an
the-
end timeline? I mean, are they ahead of schedule, behind schedule?
We're ahead of schedule right now. The unknown of the water leaks is a bit concerning because it's not sure how long it's going to take to rectify. I had hoped that we would start to reoccupy the building in 3.5 weeks. We're at week number 2. That water leaks and what it's going to take to fix those is really the unknown at this point.
Thank you for the update. Questions, comments from the council? Good. Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn?
Wait, I'll make the motion to accept the report and place on file.
Well, you're coming every meeting, right?
Yes.
But
Sure.
that's what it
That's
states
fine, good.
on-
And
Yep.
feel good, do it.
Second, that was my motion.
We got a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Second to receive and place on file. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Ayes have it. Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Make the motion.
Second.
First, second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. You're adjourned at 8:26 PM.
AC.